Chapter 340. Hearing those words, Chen Guang nearly burst into laughter. He felt that Ma Senlin was truly unlucky today. It was one thing for him to beat him up, and it was another thing for him to bump into Lu Fei, Zhong Bai, and Wang Qing. He really didn't expect that Duan Wen, whose name he didn't even remember among Zhong Bai's group, was his immediate superior. How unlucky must this person be for him to be so unlucky? Well, now that things had come to this, he really didn't have to worry about Ma Senlin's revenge anymore. It was a pity that he should have broken one of his hands just now. So now it was better to give him another stab. Chen Guang pursed his lips and added oil and vinegar to Ma Senlin's great achievements today as if he was telling a story. Chen Guang had always been good at hitting a dog when it was down. Ma Senlin listened with cold sweat, his legs were weak, and his face was pale. However, he was actually more afraid of Chen Guang, so he didn't even dare to fart. Among this group of people, there were descendants of famous families like Lu Fei and Zhong Bai. His immediate superior seemed to be just a little brother in the crowd, but Zhong Bai, who was the leader, called him Brother Guang. This person who called him Brother Guang was the real big shot, okay? You're a great man and don't hold grudges against me, okay? Why are you so ruthless to a small role like me? That's about it. Duan Wen, you have a good subordinate. Chen Guang said in a half-joking and half-serious manner. They had known each other for a long time, and he wasn't threatening Duan Wen, as there was no need to. They were just familiar with each other, and he was joking. Duan Wen's face was completely blue. It was very simple. Ma Senlin had embarrassed him. If he had known that this swindler was so deceitful, he should have pretended not to know him. They were the second generation of the rich and powerful. The most important thing was their face. If they lost money, they could just go back to their family. If they lost face, it was difficult to earn it back. Ma Senlin, Ma Senlin. I'm really. Duan Wen slapped Ma Senlin's left face hard again, and the sound was so clear that it made people's teeth ache. All right, Duan Wen, if you want to teach someone a lesson, then get this group of trash out. Don't bother me in the private room. On the other side, Zhong Bai quickly pushed Ma Senlin and Duan Wen out. He also gave a look to the other bank employees of the other counties to get lost. The reason was very simple. When Wang Qing heard Chen Guang say that Ma Senlin dared to take advantage of his sister-in-law, he was so King excited that he pulled out a knife. Chen Guang also saw Wang Qing's actions and felt that there was no need to kill him. He coughed violently and said, ahem. All right. My sister-in-law didn't really suffer any losses. Let's leave it at that. When Duan Wen pulled Ma Senlin's ear outside, Chen Guang scratched his head in embarrassment and looked at Lu Fei. Aya, how can I do that? I accidentally relied on you to support me again. Zhong Bai whispered in his ear, Brother Guang, save it. We're saving Ma Senlin's life. Chen Guang raised his eyebrows. What do you know? Zhong Bai coughed softly. My uncle is Wu Shan's secretary. Chen Guang suddenly understood and rolled his eyes. F***ck, this circle was really small. The news of him killing Shi Jiao and his men must have reached this brat's ears. But it made sense. Although Sichuan province seemed to have hundreds of millions of people, there were only a handful of people at the top of the pyramid. Zhong Bai and Tang Shaokai were primary school classmates, and Tang Ying and Wu Tong were best friends who grew up together. This small circle was really only so small. It's so boring. It's because of the existence of people like you that it's so difficult for me and Brother Fa, who worked hard to start from scratch, to survive. They couldn't eat in Hailing Pavilion anymore, so they simply moved to a private clubhouse a few minutes away from Hailing Pavilion. It happened to be the place where Lu Fei and the others often met. The meal really cost more than 40,000 yuan, but Zhu Jifa didn't pay for it. Duan Wen rushed to pay the bill, which was considered to save his face today. Zhu Jifa was quite drunk, so Chen Guang simply carried him downstairs and went to the pharmacy downstairs to buy some hangover medicine. On the way, Zhu Jifa was still muttering in a daze, "President Ma, our factory really has a lot of hope." Chen Guang heard this and felt sad. This guy really had it tough. Although he always drove a BMW 5 to show off, his acting was full of blood and tears. President Ma was just a portrayal of his daily life. If he wanted to build a good business, it was inevitable that he would encounter all kinds of disgusting things. There was definitely more than one Ma Sanlin in his life, but he still gritted his teeth and endured it. "Forget it, as a brother, I'll help him." When they arrived at the clubhouse, Lu Fei and the others muttered and brought them to the number 1 private room. Chen Guang began to panic when he saw everyone talking excitedly. He always heard that some second-generation rich people usually had a heavy taste and even dared to touch drugs that shouldn't be touched. Looking at these people's red faces, he was a little flustered. "I don't want to touch that stuff." "You guys, you're not going to do it, are you?" Chen Guang was a little restless and asked Lu Fei, who was sitting next to him, in a low voice. Lu Fei spat at him, "I'll spit on your face with salt soda." "What are you thinking? What do you think Wang Qing is doing?" On the other side, Wang Qing was holding a USB flash drive with an expression like he was on a pilgrimage. His eyes suddenly lit up as he looked at Chen Guang, as if he was going to eat him up. "Brother Racing God, this USB flash drive contains all the videos of your competitions in Hong Kong. We've been waiting for today for a long time. We're just waiting for you to explain it to us personally. I've watched this video at least 50 or 60 times, and there's only admiration left. But I don't quite understand a lot of your movements. Without you personally explaining it, it's not enough." Chen Guang let out a long sigh of relief. "Damn it, isn't it just watching a video? Is it necessary for all of you to show an addict expression? Scared me to death." At this time, Hu Ling put a wet towel on the forehead of the sleeping Zhu Jifa and quietly pulled on Chen Guang's sleeve. "Chen Guang, who are they?" Chen Guang slapped his forehead. "That's right, I almost forgot today's biggest entertainment. Quick, quick. Give me all of your business cards. Show them to Hu Ling. Be more domineering and arrogant, especially you, Zhong Bai. Take out your gold-stamped business card of Huang Xiang Group's senior director and use your most handsome posture." Zhong Bai and the others were stunned. "Brother, although we often use this method to show off and slap people in the face, you can't do it like this. You're making us so embarrassed. You make it sound like we're really people who use business cards to show off." "No, it doesn't seem to be wrong." The group of people happily took out their business cards and stuffed them into Hu Ling's hands. Hu Ling's eyelids twitched every time she took a business card. Her shock at this time was no better than Dong Tao's, but fortunately, these people seemed to be on the same side. She was much happier than Dong Tao. At this time, Lu Fei's nameless but pretentious business card became her shortcoming. She was too lazy to give it out. Anyway, Zhong Bai and the others were enough. Hu Ling was holding a stack of business cards and giggling. She turned her head from time to time to look at the sleeping Zhu Jifa beside her, and then looked at Chen Guang with a blank expression. Zhu Jifa hadn't been hit yet, but Hu Ling was already heavily injured. Chen Guang chuckled and didn't explain further. He was just waiting for Zhu Jifa to wake up and transfer the money, then he would give him a big surprise. There seemed to be something wrong with the computer, and Wang Qing still had a long way to go. Lu Fei carelessly bumped her thigh against Chen Guang's leg. "I think you were a little impulsive just now." Chapter 341. Chen Guang knew what she meant. This big sister was going to teach him how to conduct himself. Seeing that he was listening attentively, Lu Fei couldn't bear to scold him anymore. She sighed. "It's just that we're all here, and Duan Wen happens to be Ma Senlin's boss. So even if you cripple him, things can still be controlled. But if you want to learn how to run a business, you can't be so impulsive. Don't think that Ma Senlin is just an ordinary branch president. Whether it's in business or politics, who doesn't have a backer? You beat up the little guy, so naturally, you will attract the big guy's attention. If you hit him because of a disagreement, it will make it difficult for you to move forward. You have to calm down in the future. Lu Fei was afraid that he would get impatient. I'm doing this for your own good. Coincidentally, Ma Senlun's backer is Duan Wen. If it were someone else, it would not have been so easy to resolve. Qin Guang shrugged. I know you're doing this for my own good. I understand the logic, so I held it in for Brother Fa's sake. Everything else is fine, but he wanted to touch Sister Hu Ling. I can't stand it. I'll do the same thing again. That won't do. You can't just kill him on the spot. What if he comes back to take revenge? Lu Fei saw that he did not take any warning and felt helpless. Qin Guang took out his phone. You're looking down on me. As he said that, he showed Lu Fei the video he secretly recorded at the dinner table. If Ma Senlin really doesn't want to let go, I'll put this on my Weibo. TSK, what influence can a lousy Weibo have? Lu Fei rolled her eyes in disdain, but she felt more at ease. Qin Guang was not as impulsive as he looked. He did things methodically. He secretly recorded the video and had evidence. Although Ma Senlin worked for a commercial bank, he might not be able to handle this kind of scandal. Qin Guang chuckled. You don't understand. I'm going to become an internet celebrity soon. My Weibo is not lousy. Internet celebrity my ass. Lu Fei's face was full of contempt. Qin Guang was unhappy. What kind of attitude is that? I'll show you my Weibo. He has at least tens of thousands of fans now. Then, the two of them put their heads together and stared at Qin Guang's phone. 30 seconds later, Qin Guang shook his head and rubbed his eyes. What happened? Am I blind? If he remembered correctly, when he uploaded the video today, he only had around 1,000 fans at most. Even with Jin Shiyue and Jiang Yage's reposts, it had been a few hours now, so he only had around 10,000 fans at most. What the F***CK? 1,100,000, more than 800,000 fans. Lu Fei was also stunned. With her status, she did not need to care about being an internet celebrity. As long as she wanted to, she could be more famous than most internet celebrities at any time. But Qin Guang was someone she knew. She had seen him often. Other than the fact that he could instantly turn into an invincible racing god after putting on his mask, his real identity was just a little student. But he was actually a famous person. Awesome. He's indeed an internet celebrity. 800,000 fans is not bad. Wait. All-rounder. Lu Fei was about to scream. Qin Guang hurriedly covered her mouth. Shoo, lower your voice. Qin Guang had closed the comments and deleted his personal information because he did not want people to know the true identity of the all-rounder. In the end, he had accidentally forgotten about it in front of Lu Fei. Lu Fei was smart and guessed his thoughts. She whispered into his ear, all right, I won't say it loudly. I really did not expect it to be you. We were just discussing this video when we were eating. I thought that the mask looked familiar, but I thought it was a coincidence. I did not expect it to be you. Qin Guang grunted. It's good enough that you know about this. I came up with such a lousy name, but I still have a lot of fame. Later on, I will have other things to show off. Lu Fei was at a loss. Look at you. You don't look like you like to be famous. What are you after? Qin Guang rolled his eyes. It's not easy to explain to you. It's fun, right? Can I tell you that I want to collect faith energy? Of course not. Then this is our little secret? Only the two of us know about it? Lu Fei said excitedly. She was actually happy because of this. Qin Guang did not lie to her. Including Jin Shiyue, Jiang Yage, and you, a total of 4 people know about it. That's right. After all, your Weibo post was reposted by the 2 of them. You know these 2 people? Lu Fei was curious about the relationship between Qin Guang and his right-hand man. It was a coincidence. We met a few times. We're friends, I guess. Qin Guang said indifferently. Lu Fei suddenly put her hand on his shoulder. Then, is your relationship with your right-hand man better or mine better? Qin Guang was burning with Lu Fei's touch. My relationship with you is better. Much better. Lu Fei was satisfied. At least you have a conscience. By the way, I told you to work for me last time. Come over during the summer vacation and be my sweetheart. I'll show you how I do business. It's totally different from your brother's small business. I guarantee that you'll learn something from it. Qin Guang was a little tempted, but he had other plans for this summer vacation, so he did not plan to follow Lu Fei around for the time being. Moreover, he was about to get 10 million from Lioli, and he would have to dig out at least a few million from his Dota team. This woman seemed to have not recovered from the pain of being blown up into an African, but it was better not to provoke her, right? More than 100 million yuan in cash was in his account, but it was not his. It was quite a bitter feeling. Let's put this aside for now. There are quite a lot of things to do during the summer vacation. Sure. Anyway, let me know when you're interested. I have no problem with it. Lu Fei was not angry at Qin Guang's rejection. On the other side, Wang Qing was finally done. This guy was quite creative. He actually re-edited the video and made it look like a documentary. The opening scene was accompanied by blood-boiling background music, and there were even special effects added to the scene. It looked especially cool. He put the microphone in Qin Guang's hand and said regretfully, "It's a pity that this video can't be shown outside, or it will cause a sensation. Save it. I don't want to be blacklisted by the traffic police. And I don't want to be challenged by street racers who jump out of nowhere all day long." Qin Guang was not interested in what Wang Qing said at all. Anyway, the statue of the racing god training ground had already been erected, so it was useless to make it more famous. He did not care about anything else at all. However, it was quite a unique feeling to watch his 5 days in Hong Kong from beginning to end again. Since everyone wanted to hear it, he might as well explain it to them. Chapter 342. From his point of view, watching his performance in the 5 days of the racing competition again was actually quite a good feeling. Especially when he was bragging, the group of senior directors of Huangshan Group, the president and general manager of the subsidiary of Lu's chemical industry, the director of the business department of Dongcheng Trading Company, these young big shots, who others had to stretch their necks and look up to, all stared at him as if he was a god. Those pairs of eyes were full of worship and infatuation. It was a great feeling. Please don't stop. Here, I chose inertial drift. You guys know inertial drift, right? It's finding a key point, Qin Guang began to explain. Even though the group of people had seen this video countless times, it was different with Qin Guang's commentary in person. This taste, it's strong. Brother racing god, tell me here, it's that time when you flew. How did you dare to fly? Did you accurately calculate the distance before you took off? The good student Zhong Bai called him brother racing god again. Qin Guang smiled confidently and flipped his hair, looking especially elegant and handsome. Calculate my ass. I didn't have time to calculate. I'm not AF** king computer. Just rely on feeling. Intuition. That's the most trustworthy partner of the best racer. Intuition. The group of racing fans only felt that brother racing god was really cool at this moment. It wasn't that they hadn't seen the world, in fact, they had seen a lot of the world, but in the field of racing that they loved the most, standing in front of them was the world's god. In the flesh, no discount. This was the man who left an unsurpassable average speed record of 175.99 on the mountain track. This was the strongest racing god in history. Anyway, I'll tell you the truth, my driving skills can't be replicated. I didn't expect you to learn it when I taught you once. Wang Qing might have some talent, but he's still far from it. Qin Guang pointed at Wang Qing. If you want to learn my skills, you have to be prepared to die 95 times. Fortunately, Wang Qing didn't have any major accidents, thank God. Wang Qing scratched his head in embarrassment. So, I don't care if you still want to race in the future. Anyway, from my personal point of view, I hope you can treat this as a hobby. You don't have to risk your lives to race. Anyway, you won't be able to catch up to me in your lifetime. Chen Guang also knew that he wasn't in a position to lecture these people. Even if he did, they might not listen to him. So, he simply mentioned it, which was considered as a perfect ending to his lively class today. Wang Qing, who had suffered a great loss before, was the first to nod. I said at the time that I wouldn't act up again. Now I'm just fascinated, but not by myself. Just like football fans who like to watch football, they don't necessarily need to know how to play. The others also nodded in agreement. It seemed that the incident with Wang Qing had indeed awakened these people. It's good that you're not showing off. Last time, I almost got torn apart by Wang Qing's father. Don't do it again. My heart won't be able to take it. Chen Guang teased. Hu Ling didn't dare to interrupt from the beginning to the end. She could only tidy up Zhu Jifa in the corner while foolishly watching Chen Guang. She almost suspected that the identities printed on these people's business cards were bullshit. How could there be such a boss, such a bank director? What? What is this place? Zhu Jifa woke up in a daze. He mumbled. This poor brother Fa finally got rid of the alcohol in his stomach with the help of the anti-hangover medicine. On the other side, Chen Guang had just finished showing off and quickly came over. Brother Fa, you're awake? Come, drink some tea and clear your head. Zhu Jifa sat up with Hu Ling's help. He took the Tai Guanyin tea from Chen Guang and took a big gulp. Then, he looked around and said in confusion, what's going on? Where's President Ma? Is he still thinking about that grandson? Chen Guang curled his lips. These are my friends. That grandson Ma beat me up and ran away. Ah. Zhu Jifa's eyes widened. He looked at Chen Guang in a daze for a long time. There was a hint of anger in his eyes, but he gradually calmed down. He first sighed. Sigh, I shouldn't have brought you here. You can't take this kind of humiliation. Chen Guang thought he would scold him. He didn't expect this brother to quickly swing his hand and said fiercely, damn it. If I beat him up, then I beat him up. How badly did he beat him up? Does this count as a death grudge? If it's a death grudge, I'll find someone to send him on his way. The one who strikes first has the advantage. The one who strikes later will suffer. Zhu Jifa decided to go all out. Lu Fei, Zhong Bai, and the others, who had been giving Chen Guang some space, were also quietly sizing up this brother that Chen Guang respected. Because of the previous incident, they originally looked down on the cowardly Zhu Jifa. Although they didn't hear what he was muttering, Lu Fei and the others, who were very knowledgeable, had already guessed his plan from his expression. They couldn't help but look at this person in a new light. Chen Guang was also stunned. This brother was not the same as his impression of brother Fa. At least, he was different from the past 2 years. Had this guy finally returned to his true self from when he was young and insensible and had fought with her fiercely and fiercely? This time, I dragged you down because of me. If it was just me, I could bear it. But now that you beat him up, the grudge has been formed. There's no retreat, so I won't retreat. Chen Guang gritted his teeth. Anyway, he was beaten up pretty badly. His face is swollen, but there's a reason for it. Immediately, Chen Guang told Zhu Jifa what he saw and heard before the fight, but this time, he didn't exaggerate. After all, Hu Ling didn't really suffer any losses. As expected, this brother exploded when he heard it. He jumped up violently and was about to call his hometown to pull him up. Hu Ling and Chen Guang hurriedly stopped him. After a while, he finally calmed down. Zhu Jifa also gradually calmed down. He fiercely slapped his own face. F***ck. I'm not a man. How could I let my woman suffer like this? Chen Guang comforted him. It's okay. You're a man. This time, it was purely an accident. Who would have thought that Ma Lin was that kind of person? We brothers don't say anything else. This time, fortunately, we have you. You did the right thing. Otherwise, would have to die with his family. Zhu Jifa sighed. It's a pity that things have turned out like this. There's no hope of getting a loan. Forget it. If the factory collapses, then so be it. It doesn't matter what I do. You said that using miting to open the internet can't make money, right? Then I'll change to a car with lower gas mileage and come to Wujing to drive with you. Alright, save it. Sister Hu Ling, hurry up and show these brothers business cards to Brother Fa. Look at him when he's driving, how can he open the internet? Chen Guang chuckled and gave Hu Ling a look. Zhu Jifa's face was blank until he saw the business card that Hu Ling gave him. His eyes were even more blank. Zhong Bai and the others gave enough face to Chen Guang. Every time Zhu Jifa saw a business card, he would come up and say hello to him. Every time he said hello, Zhu Jifa's little heart would beat faster. The more business people were in, the more they understood what the information on these people's business cards represented. The more difficult it was to start a business, the more jealous, envious, and looked up to these people who were born with a golden spoon in their mouths. He could not help but be shocked. He was much more knowledgeable than Chen Guang. He had read a lot of financial magazines. All of these companies were like thunder to his ears. They were all a bunch of rich second generations born with a golden spoon in their mouths. Chapter 343. Duan Wen was the last one. He was embarrassed. Bro Fa, I'm Ma Senlun's superior. I'm worried about this incident. I'll investigate and deal with it. I'll arrange another branch for you. As long as the procedures are in line, we can negotiate. Oh right, you don't have to worry about Ma Senlun's revenge. He can't even protect himself now. Duan Wen was straightforward. Although he was Ma Senlun's superior, he couldn't just dismiss his subordinates. However, Ma Senlun's hands were not clean. He might have coaxed Duan Wen well in the past, but after today's incident, Duan Wen saw how bad his new subordinate was. It was beyond his expectations. It was not surprising that he was fired. Zhu Jifa was dumbfounded. He first looked at Chen Guang, then at Duan Wen, before looking at Hu Ling, who was panicking by the side. Chen Guang felt that this was not enough. He smiled and took out his UBS black card. Bro Fa, do you see this card? It's a UBS black card. Don't even think about it if your personal assets are less than 10 million. I told you, 10 million is nothing. I can transfer it to you anytime. What was wrong with this world? Looking at Zhu Jifa's silly appearance, Chen Guang felt smug in his heart and imitated Zhu Jifa's arrogant tone. Why are you asking about the matters of adults? Oh. Check it out. How about it? Call me bro and I'll transfer the money to you on the spot. Lu Fei, who was behind, could not stand his arrogance anymore. She slapped the back of his head. What's the point of being arrogant? Do you really think 10 million is like buying things online? You can even transfer money through your phone. Make an appointment. Sign on the spot. There's a whole bunch of paperwork waiting for you. Transfer the money on the spot. Transfer it to your face. This is... Zhu Jifa looked at Lu Fei. She looked like his sister-in-law, but not really. Even when Lu Fei was joking with Chen Guang, her aura was too strong. Lu Fei smiled and leaned on Chen Guang's back. The information on my business card is too simple, so I didn't give you a business card. Hi Brother Fa, I'm Lu Fei from the Lu Chemical Industry Group, a hardcore fan of Chen Guang. Lu's Chemical Industry, these 4 resounding big words reverberated like thunder in the ears. This unreasonably beautiful girl in front of him was called Lu Fei, also surnamed Lu. Combined with the identity of the other people, the identity of this master was self-evident. Hello, hello. Zhu Jifa stood up from the sofa. Lu Fei hurriedly asked him to sit down. Brother Fa, sit down. You're Qin Guang's brother, I don't dare to put on airs with you. Alright, you two brothers have a nice chat. I'm going to continue to worship Qin Guang's miracles. I haven't seen enough yet. After saying that, she left, leaving Qin Guang to do whatever he wanted. After Lu Fei left, Zhu Jifa was stunned for a long time before he recovered. He looked at Qin Guang in disbelief. You really struck it rich? Qin Guang nodded. I really struck it rich. Just this month, I struck it rich. Very, very rich. I'm afraid you'll be scared to death if I tell you. Anyway, it's not hard for me to take out 10 million to give you. If I give you more, I'm afraid I'll cause trouble. Just as Qin Guang said this, a sinister sneer came from the depths of his mind. Although Azure didn't say anything, she actually understood it very well. Aren't you afraid that I'll squander it all for you? In a hurry to spend it? I understand, I understand. Little brat, I'll let you understand how stupid you are. You dare to question my ability. I'm not joking with you. Not only did I finish watching The Great Era, I also finished watching The Unmatched Business Genius. Qin Guang silently teared up. Why is it a TV series again? Big sister, can you come up with something more reliable? What kind of attitude is that? The Unmatched Business Genius is really a classic. There's a lot of truth in it. It's over, it's all over. This crazy goddess has entered the zone. There's no saving her. On the other side, Zhu Jifa took a deep breath and took out a cigarette to calm himself down. He thought for a moment. Didn't Director Duan say that we can arrange for another bank loan? You won't need this money. F***CK. I've already given it to you, and you actually don't want me to be angry with you. Won't need your sister. I'm telling you, if you dare not accept it, I'll donate it to Project Hope. Do you believe me? I mean what I say. You have to take Duan Wen's money, and you have to take mine too. Sure enough, threats were the best method. Zhu Jifa knew that Qin Guang was an unreasonable person. He hurriedly said, Don't. If you really have the money, I won't stand on ceremony with you. The factory's situation is really critical now. The earlier the funds are in place, the earlier I can contact the factory. But I can't take your money for nothing. How about this? The factory is worth about 8 million now. I'll take 49% of your shares. Qin Guang waved his hands. Don't worry, this is what I'm lending you. The two brothers argued for a long time. In any case, Qin Guang insisted that he didn't want Zhu Jifa's shares. Even if Zhu Jifa swore to the heavens that the factory's situation was good and that as long as there was a new production line, he didn't want it. That factory was the blood, sweat, and tears of Zhu Jifa and his father. Qin Guang's money came too easily, and he was in a hurry to spend it. He didn't want to give Lioli a chance to lose money, so how could Qin Guang have the heart to take 49% of Brother Fa's shares? If it wasn't for Zhu Jifa's insistence, he wouldn't even want to calculate the interest. After the two of them settled the matter, Zhu Jifa joined the crowd and watched the video of Qin Guang's competition in Xiangjiang again. Only then did he know how Qin Guang got his money and how much it was. Like the others, Zhu Jifa looked at Qin Guang as if he was looking at a god after watching the video. Qin Guang quickly pulled him back. Remember. Don't tell my dad, or he'll beat me to death. Zhu Jifa nodded repeatedly, indicating that he understood. It's about adults, ha 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 ha. Do you still want to act cool in front of me? Do you still dare to look down on me? Do you still want to be a big brother? Qin Guang started to show off again. Zhu Jifa shook his head. I don't dare. Hey. That's right. Call me brother, or else I won't give you the loan. Are you done? I'll beat you up. Qin Guang finally went overboard. Zhu Jifa was furious. When they were about to leave late at night, Chen Guang shoved Rina's car key to Zhu Jifa. He planned to get Hu Ling to drive the car back when they went back. He really needed to change cars. Actually, they settled a lot of things that night. Although Chen Guang had donated 10 million yuan and Zhu Jifa didn't need the loan anymore, Duan Wen still wanted to settle the matter. On one hand, he wanted to give face to Chen Guang, and on the other hand, he wanted to save face from Ma Sanlin. It was indeed embarrassing for him to have such a person under him. Zhu Jifa could get a bank loan of 10 million yuan in addition to Chen Guang's loan. With 20 million yuan in hand, he wouldn't panic. Apart from that, Lu Fei, Zhong Bai, and the others also asked for Zhu Jifa's business card when they left. They made it clear that they could consider cooperating with him if they had a suitable order after he was done with the factory. They wouldn't purposely joke about this. Since they really asked for a business card and took the initiative to ask for it, it meant that they were serious about it and not fooling around. Why did these big companies want to cooperate with Zhu Jifa's small printing factory? It was also because of Chen Guang. This made Zhu Jifa very happy. He felt like a man who achieved the Tao. Even his chickens and dogs could ascend to heaven. It didn't feel right when he thought about it. Was he a chicken or a dog? Chapter 344. Look at you, a country bumpkin who hasn't seen the world. You're a disgrace to me. Chen Guang still couldn't restrain his desire to complain. He had been pressured by this guy to be his big brother for more than 10 years. Now, he could finally avenge himself. How satisfying. I'm so unlucky to have a brother like you. Zhu Jifa's face was green with anger, but he was really happy. When Chen Guang said he beat up Ma Sanlin just now, his heart was already cold. He really planned to run the internet with his brother, but he didn't expect Chen Guang to be so successful all of a sudden. Spring had suddenly fallen from the sky for his family of people who had suffered so much. I underestimated you. Zhu Jifa sighed. Alright, you can slowly experience your brother's awesomeness. I'll be going first. Chen Guang waved goodbye to Zhu Jifa and got into Lu Fei's car. In fact, he felt that his biggest gain today was spending the 10 million yuan. On the surface, it seemed like he was simply giving money to Zhu Jifa. However, that was not the case. With the relationship between the two brothers, Zhu Jifa wanted to expand production because there were too many orders. Now, he had even hugged a lot of golden thighs in one go. His factory looked small, but it would not collapse in a short period of time. If he could seize the opportunity, he might really be able to transform from a chicken into a phoenix and expand it. Therefore, when Lu Li had her eyes on the money in the UBS, he transferred the 10 million yuan to Zhu Jifa and let him use it to build a factory. Not only did he not spend money, but he also made money. He saved 10 million yuan from Lu Li. This feeling was as good as making money. If his little trick hadn't been discovered by Lu Li, Chen Guang would really dare to give away 50 million yuan, let alone 10 million yuan. Unfortunately, he could only think about it. Zhu Jifa was also very excited. Although he didn't know what happened to Chen Guang, it was said that a scholar who had been away for 3 days must be treated differently. This time, he met this brother of iron underpants who grew up with him again. He hadn't changed, and the feeling of the two brothers together was still the same. But his status was completely different from what it had been in the past. Not to mention the friends he had made in the 5 capitals, just his UBS black card alone could explain too many problems. After watching Wang Qing's documentary, Zhu Jifa understood that Chen Guang's money had not come easily. He had risked his life to earn it. In fact, he was wrong. Everyone thought that Chen Guang's countless actions during the race were extremely thrilling. Only Chen Guang himself did not take it seriously. You mortals can't understand the realm of gods. Little Light is really different from before. I've underestimated him. Sitting in the passenger seat, Zhu Jifa muttered. Hu Ling, on the other hand, was much calmer than Zhu Jifa when she drove. She giggled and said, "That's right. Thinking about how you always look down on him, I think you're really stupid. Look, a loan of 10 million is such a big deal, but his friends solved it with just a word. He even rushed to pay for such an expensive table of food. How embarrassed we are." Zhu Jifa chuckled. "Yes, I'm really stupid. I was still pointing at others. Actually, my own brother is my savior. He told me long ago that he had money, but I didn't believe him. When Uncle Chen returns to the county, I'll still secretly transfer 40% of the shares to him." Hu Ling was puzzled. "Why? Didn't he say that he didn't want it?" Zhu Jifa shook his head and said firmly, "Why should I just accept it when he says he doesn't want it? I'm the elder brother, after all. How can I take advantage of my younger brother like this? Let me tell you, our factory is going to be rich. I'll go back and work hard. In the future, when it gets big, I won't let him down. I know him. He's hot-tempered and impatient. He's not suitable for business. He can live a poor life, but when he's rich, he's a spendthrift. He doesn't use his brain when doing business. Don't look at how he's almost 200 million now. He's extremely rich, but who knows when he'll squander it all. I'll give the shares to Uncle Chen. If he goes overboard, I'll be his last resort. It's a pity that Uncle Chen hasn't paid off his debt with the court. It's quite troublesome. If it really doesn't work, I'll transfer the shares to Qin Guang's uncle first. Anyway, it's always been like this." Hu Ling didn't respond to him. She pretended to be focused on driving, but she was already complaining in her heart. Qin Guang was right to scold him. The moment he turned his back on her, he started to secretly act like a big brother again. He didn't have any self-awareness at all. "Let's get a room." On the other side, Qin Guang was sitting in Lu Fei's car, happily looking at the beautiful woman beside him who seemed to always be wearing leather clothes. Lu Fei poked his head. "Dream on. You've missed your chance. I still have a big basket of documents waiting to be approved when I get back. How can it be so easy to have sex with me? Be my sweetheart, and I'll find some time to pamper you depending on my mood. But for now, forget it." Qin Guang sent Lu Fei back to the gate of the hospital with a bitter smile. Fortunately, when he got off the car and rolled away, he had a good time, which could be considered as Lu Fei's compensation. She was really not angry about this matter, and she was really not in a hurry. It was indeed okay to do that with Qin Guang, but she had also passed the time when she was most emotional in Shangjiang. He was still a virgin. How could she get a room with him just because she said so? "You have to arouse my mood first. But now, it's not enough." He got off the car with a big tent. It was late at night, so Qin Guang didn't dare to go back to the ward. Instead, he went directly to the hotel opposite the hospital and got a room. Lying on the bed, the quilt was also covered with a big tent. The effect of the super mighty tonic soup and the imported medicine had not completely disappeared in the past few days. Tonight, he was addicted to sex with Lu Fei, but he didn't really enjoy himself. Something happened, and he couldn't sleep. Qin Guang couldn't help but feel a little melancholy. Although he seemed to have a lot of luck with women, thinking about it carefully, it all became a disaster of love. Being a human was really suffering. It was even worse than being a dog. He could just drag a dog that looked pleasing to the eye along the street and work on it. He didn't need to care about how the world looked at him, and he could be as comfortable as he wanted. Now, he sneaked into the hospital to find the great and righteous healer, Dr. Jisher Tang, to save his life. He would definitely be beaten to death by her. Call Sister Wu Tong. It wasn't that it was impossible, but calling someone in the middle of the night just for this kind of trivial matter was too disrespectful. As his mind was letting his imagination run wild, Qin Guang thought of the embarrassing incident that he encountered with Sun Xiaoxuan in another hotel. He couldn't help but smile. He didn't know what Sun Xiaoxuan was busy with after returning to his hometown. It had only been a few days since the summer vacation started, and he didn't see her, but his heart felt a little empty because he missed her. Forget it, don't think about these useless things. I am the owner of the heavenly Holy Grail, and I can't let my lower body control my thoughts. I opened Weibo to divert my attention, and see if my account is really going to go against the heavens. When he looked again, the total number of fans was still around 800,000, but it was close to the 900,000 mark. It seemed that the explosive growth of the first video was about to end. Maybe it would continue to grow, and it might even break the million mark. But if there was no new hot topic, then the follow-up would be the same. But no matter what, having a million live fans was really the most authentic internet celebrity. He was a little hesitant about whether or not to open up private messages. After all, he was already a celebrity, and God knows how many girls with bad intentions were waiting to throw themselves into his arms. But after thinking about it, he decided to forget it. Since he had chosen to maintain a sense of mystery from the beginning, then he might as well keep it mysterious until the end. I'm not going to be a fan maniac. There are hundreds of people, and God knows if those girls that I've never met before will come to me on their own accord. This society is dark, and human nature is complicated. I am the owner of the heavenly Holy Grail, and I can't bury my limited life on those unknown girls. How about this? I'll just casually post a Weibo to say hello to my fans. Hi. Hello everyone. I'm a cute almighty Superman, please take care of me in the future. I'll keep updating exciting videos, please continue to support me. F***CK. My cute way of greeting actually caused me to lose fans. I lost more than 300 fans in the blink of an eye. Chen Guang's face was full of tears. Was the way I posted on Weibo wrong? There was no reason. I clearly said it in such a friendly and approachable manner. Do you guys have to be so heartless? Is it because my way of greeting is too uncool, and seems too low? That's possible. Should I just delete it? Forget it, I've already lost fans anyway. What's the point of deleting it? Besides, I'm not the kind of man who forcefully pretends to be cool. I didn't expect that I would become a fan maniac after just saying hello to everyone. My coolness has plummeted. Finally, he kept refreshing, and after losing more than 3,000 fans at once, it started to slowly rise back up. After being distracted for a long time, he put his hand under his crotch. Trying to divert his attention was useless. What should be hard was still hard. Chen Guang's face also darkened. What kind of sin did I get into? My dad harmed me, Tang Ying harmed me, and Lu Fei harmed me too. Sure enough, now that things have come to this, I can only rely on my internet drive to get by. Perhaps it was due to luck. Chen Guang suddenly opened WeChat, and then his eyes widened, as if he had seen a ghost. Jiang Yage, this woman, you're really something. Chapter 345. In front of him were a few photos that Jiang Yage had sent about 10 minutes ago. The first photo was still okay. At least she was wearing underwear. In the photo, Jiang Yage was blushing. She was making a V sign with her hand in front of the mirror. Her face was blushing shyly. Next to the photo was her photoshopped artistic words. The scale you wanted. The lavender lace bra and the same lavender triangular lace pants were captured by the iPhone 7s's ultra-clear camera. Alright, the scale of the first photo was still tolerable. He could just treat it as a swimsuit photo. But from the second photo onwards, something was wrong. This time, she didn't take a photo of her face. He could only see her from her neck down. The most crucial problem was that there was nothing on her upper body. She was completely naked. Luckily, she used her hands to cover the important parts. The caption read, "I'm a little embarrassed." Chen Guang spat. So you know how to be embarrassed. You don't mean what you say. If you're really embarrassed, why did you send this photo? He scrolled down. The third photo. Crazy. This woman is crazy. Her hands are not covered. After squinting at the photo for about 10 seconds, Chen Guang let out a long sigh of relief. Thank God, she was smart enough to censor it. But this was already very exaggerated, okay. If it wasn't for the first photo, he wouldn't have believed that it was Jiang Ye's own photo. Even if he knew that it was the truth, he would rather lie to himself and say that it wasn't. But it really couldn't be faked. The naughty little black mole beside her belly button was right there. The caption for the third photo was very simple. There were only 3 words. Scroll down. He scrolled down a little and found that the top of the photo was exactly the same as the third photo. Qin Guang could roughly guess something. The version without holy light? He started to panic. What should he do? Should he look or not? Forget it. If you dare to send it, I dare to look. Coward. That's right. It really is the version without holy light. Duang. The sound was coming from a place where it shouldn't be. Qin Guang's eyes widened as if he was possessed. He felt as if he had been struck by lightning. This was really Jiang Ye. What had happened to this world? Is it my eyes that are wrong, or my phone, or the world? He stared at it for 3 minutes, zooming in again and again, trying to figure out every detail. Finally, the image stopped at the small black mole next to her belly button. At this time, the mole had been enlarged to the point that it occupied half of the phone screen. It really belonged to her, there was no doubt about it. This crazy woman. The picture was restored to its original size, and the accompanying text was still 3 words, scroll down. I don't want to read any more. Qin Guang was terrified. Duang. 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 Once this special skill was added, it was impossible to stop. Even though he knew that it was going to be a trap, he still wanted to jump in without hesitation. All right, he continued to flip to the next page. It was different from the previous 2. She took another photo. Her upper body was still bare, and everything was there. But she found a notebook out of nowhere and wrote a few words on it with a watercolor pen. It was obvious that she was very nervous when she wrote about herself. Her little hands were trembling. The notebook in the photo was in her left hand, and on it was written, "To my dear light, the photo really belongs to me. Although strong alcohol is good, don't be greedy." 5 minutes later, Qin Guang's heavy breathing came from his nose. He silently pulled a few pieces of tissue from the bedside table. He held the phone tightly and stared at the ceiling with a dull face. His mind was blank, and only one sentence kept echoing in his mind. The old man was tricked. He was trapped in his own trap. Big sister, I was just joking with you. I didn't really expect you to send me any big pictures. Big sister, are you crazy? You are a celebrity. Where is your modesty? Where is your integrity? I was just joking, why did you take it seriously? He raised his hand and looked at the white photos that Jiang Ye sent him on WeChat. He wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He never dreamed that this woman would dare to send it. A casual joke turned out to be a prophecy. Jiang Ye was completely different from the celebrity in his mind. He had been trying very hard to keep a distance from this troublesome person. Today, he finally had a stroke in his brain. He said that the photos she sent were too small, but deep down, he didn't really mean it. He just felt that he hadn't talked to her for a long time and was just joking with her. He only thought that the other party was a famous superstar in the country. Even if she was interested in him, why would she send such indecent photos to others? Aren't you afraid that I'll sell it for money? Or are you not afraid that I'll lose my phone? Aren't you afraid that you'll fail miserably? So this is impossible. There's no reason. But now it really happened. What should I do now? I've already seen it, and I feel like I'm really going to be trapped this time. Qin Guang narrowed his eyes. He didn't want to look at the photos on the phone, but he couldn't help but sneak a peek. This figure is really good. There's a line of words below. F***ck, it's been so long, and I didn't notice it at all. How shameful, how shameful. I gathered my courage for a long time before I dared to take this photo. Do you like it? Remember to delete it after you see it. Although it didn't take a photo of my face, it won't affect me much even if I lose it. But if someone else sees it, you'll suffer a big loss. I like you so much. Chen Guang thought that he had seen through Jiang Yage's bottom line. It was only at this moment that he realized he was wrong. This woman has no bottom line at all. He remembered the first time they met. This so-called big star's evil eyes kept drifting around his underwear when he was almost naked. He also remembered the woman's words before he left the set. It was purely to tease him. I like you. It was also that time when he drove away to get rid of these two people and entered the racing god training ground. Later, when he was about to take the Patek Philippe at Disney, this girl threw the watch into her chest and asked him to reach in to take it. Celebrities these days, artists these days, their moral integrity is really broken all over the place. In order to tease me, you paid too much. Do you mean that you'll be happy if I take advantage of you? Jiang Yage, this girl is sick. It's all right. And she's seriously sick. Hopefully, her family will find out that she's insane and seek medical treatment as soon as possible. While deleting their conversation, Chen Guang checked his phone to make sure that he didn't leave any meaningless messages. He felt relieved, but at the same time, he also felt a little regretful. After thinking about it, he decided that he still had to send her a reply. It didn't matter if this benefit was poisonous or if he had fallen into her trap. She had already sent it to this extent. If he still didn't reply, it would be too much. Sister Jiang Yage, I was scared by you. It's okay, it's okay. That's enough. Thank you, I'm scared. Chapter 346. In the end, he replied like this because he really didn't know what kind of expression he should use to face this tough big shot who teased him with her moral integrity. If it weren't for the fact that he had taken her Patek Philippe and felt that he owed her, Chen Guang really didn't want to have any more contact with Jiang Yage. He always felt that she was too unreliable, and if he was not careful, he would be dragged into the mud pit and be doomed eternally. However, thanks to her, he could indeed sleep soundly and peacefully tonight. Smelling the pungent and sour smell coming from the bed, Chen Guang thought so. After getting up early the next morning and going to the hospital to greet his mother and old man Kenner, Chen Guang slipped out early and took a taxi to the hotel to find Zhu Jifa. The sooner the money was transferred, the sooner he could feel at ease. He always felt that Liuli was ready to make a move at any time to show her power as a god-emperor-level financial steward. How bad could she be? Chen Guang really couldn't imagine. In short, he just guessed it as tragic as possible. I hope she can leave me some change. Transferring 10 million yuan was indeed not something that could be done with just a few words. Even if it was a private transfer, UBS, which was famous for its security, would never allow something like 10 million yuan to be transferred easily. After spending the whole morning, Chen Guang, accompanied by the manager of the only branch of UBS in the 5 capitals, signed countless documents, and even had a video chat with the head office of UBS and the person in charge of Asia Pacific who had helped him apply for this card. Finally, the money was transferred to Zhu Jifa's account. Chen Guang was tormented, but it was not over yet. Zhu Jifa took out a large pile of documents, forced him to read them word by word, and signed a pile of documents on the spot. He thought it was easy for him. I am rich, and I don't lack money. I will give it to you. We are brothers in this life. If I can't even trust Zhu Jifa, Chen Guang feels that I have lived in vain. Perhaps normal people would think that his thinking was childish. Between brothers, the biggest test of human nature in this world is money, not to mention such a large amount of money. Actually, it wasn't that he wasn't sensible, and it wasn't that he didn't understand the schemes involved. There were some people that he could scheme against, and there were some things that he was not so easy to talk to. However, when it came to Zhu Jifa, the two of them had been very good to each other since they were young. Chen Guang did not want to mess with him at all. However, in Chen Guang's eyes, when Zhu Jifa had millions of dollars, he didn't even bat an eyelid. It was as if he had given Rina to him for free. When his car was wrecked, he didn't even bat an eyelid and transferred $20,000 to Chen Guang to repair it. He didn't mention anything else. When he had the opportunity to set up the factory, he was also thinking about helping her shoulder the loan for the kidney transplant surgery that might exist. He would even help to pay for 500,000 or 600,000 yuan. Where else could he find such a brother? Now that he had 180 million in his pocket, it was completely reasonable for him to give Zhu Jifa 10 million for emergency treatment. However, although he thought this way, Zhu Jifa also completely understood his feelings, and he was extremely touched in his heart. However, Zhu Jifa was no longer a student. Although he was only 3 years older than Chen Guang, he had been taking over the factory ever since he graduated from high school, so he couldn't be willful. Therefore, even if Chen Guang repeatedly rejected him, he still had to clarify the contract. If something really happened and Chen Guang lost all of his 10 million, with this contract, he was willing to give the entire factory's land to Chen Guang as compensation without any objections. If something really happened, even if the entire factory became Chen Guang's, and Zhu Jifa himself became a worker from the boss, he actually didn't care. Anyway, as long as I have food to eat, I don't have to worry about not being able to live, right? If I really became a pauper, Lu Xiaohong would look down on me even more and divorce me. Who knows, it might even be the second spring of my life. With this thought in mind, he insisted on this clause firmly in the contract. Damn it, don't tell me you really want the factory to collapse and then let Lu Xiaohong dump you? Chen Guang was seen through by this guy. Zhu Jifa only laughed mysteriously. Don't worry so much. Anyway, you have to sign it. Otherwise, I will tell your dad about you racing. F***ck, you win. In the eyes of ordinary people, the financing process was considered a huge sum of money, but the two brothers just chatted idly like this. Zhu Jifa still had to continue going to the bank. It would be a waste not to take the 10 million that Duan Wen had promised. Hu Ling drove the Rina straight away, while Chen Guang took a taxi to the direction of the 4S shops. It was time to buy a car. After driving the Rina for almost a year, he really couldn't bear to suddenly change it. However, he didn't lack money anymore. If he didn't reward himself before Liuli lost all the money, he might not be able to get the Rina one day. This brother wants to spend money. Spend money like crazy. This brother today is rich. Willful. To put it in a more sophisticated way, this is called having a daughter at home. Acting according to one's heart. Looking at the countless 4S shops around him, Chen Guang couldn't help but feel a little lost. Only when he arrived here did he realize that he didn't even think about what car he wanted to buy before rushing here. He was getting a little carried away. If he had known this would happen, he would have found someone to come with him. That way, they could at least give him some reference. This was a little awkward. A few days ago, he sat in Zhu Jifa's BMW 5, and it felt pretty good. However, that was just a momentary thought. Now, he felt that something was wrong. He was a student, after all. If he drove a BMW in school all day long, he might be talked about behind his back every day. Look, it's that pretentious guy who drives a BMW around school all day long. It's as if he's afraid that people don't know he's rich. Therefore, after thinking about it for a while, he decided to go to the Mercedes-Benz 4S shop in front of him first. Actually, whether it was a BMW or a Mercedes-Benz, there was no essential difference at all. Chen Guang put his hands in his trouser pockets and ran to the 4S shop's entrance. The few salespeople at the entrance glanced at him and then ignored him. They continued to face the outside, waiting for their prey at any time. The salespeople at the 4S shop generally worked like this. Excluding the situation where old customers came in, every time a new batch of customers came in, a salesperson would immediately go up to receive them. This salesperson would naturally get a commission for every successful deal. Of course, this business definitely had to be negotiated. It was common for people to have a few unsuccessful deals. Other than that, you had to receive a batch of customers first. It didn't matter if you were successful or not. Even if the person you received chatted with you for 2 or 3 minutes, they would run away. Sorry, next, you have to line up. You have to wait for everyone else to be received before it's your turn in the next round. Unless you were a relative of the manager or a gold medal salesperson, you might have some privileges. However, regular ordinary salespeople had to follow this rule. Otherwise, if someone came in, wouldn't it be a joke if a swarm of people rushed up to fight their own people to steal their business? When Chen Guang entered the door, there were 5 salespeople who were idle. There were 2 men and 3 women. Of course, the men weren't as handsome as Chen Guang, but the 3 women were really not bad. They were tall, dressed fashionably, and had exquisite makeup. Their faces were 7 out of 10, and coupled with 10 out of 10 makeup, they were definitely 8.5 out of 10 beauties. It was a man's turn in the line, but he really didn't want to waste his precious round on this young man who was obviously here to see something strange. The other 4 people in the line behind him had the same idea. They weren't blind. They also had to earn money to eat. The manager also turned a blind eye to this phenomenon and was too lazy to care. Of course, our shop service is first class, but our service is only for our customers or potential customers. For a young man like you, you're just here to see what's going on. If we really sent someone to follow you, you would feel uncomfortable, right? Look, how considerate we are. Chapter 347. The salesperson couldn't be blamed for not recognizing Mount Tai. It was a hot day, and Chen Guang was wearing a simple t-shirt, a sports bag, a pair of loose Hawaiian shorts, and a pair of leather shoes. Speaking of his outfit, he had bought it when his family's hot pot restaurant had just opened. He could barely be considered a second-generation rich guy. His outfit didn't look like much, but it actually cost around $1,000. It was definitely not the shabby and shameful kind, but it was far from noble and elegant. The most fundamental reason why the salesperson ignored him was that he looked too young, and he came alone, so the salesperson thought that he was purely a tourist who came to the Mercedes-Benz shop to see rare things. The Mercedes-Benz 4S shop really received a lot of similar, aspiring tourists every day. Every year, there were dozens of young talents who stood in this shop and looked at the dazzling lineup of luxury cars, swearing in their hearts that they must buy one, if not 100. Some people had already done it, and some were still living in a dream. As for Chen Guang, others thought that he was living in a dream, but in fact, he could really buy any car he wanted. If he was unhappy, he could buy one and smash another. But no one paid attention to him. In the huge sales hall, there were a few other groups of people scattered around. Among these people, there was a salesperson who was as humble as a servant with a genial smile on his face. His saliva was flying everywhere, and he was in high spirits, introducing to the customers who were obviously successful people how great their cars were, how affordable the recent prices were, and how great the promotional activities were. He told them that there would be no more shops like this if they missed out on this opportunity. Don't hesitate, it's now. Place an order immediately, and buy the car of your dreams. In this way, you can become a noble Mercedes-Benz owner, join the Mercedes-Benz China Club, and enjoy the supreme service. That was probably what it meant. These salespeople were tall and handsome, and the women were young and beautiful. They were all very eloquent. If the customers were single men, some of the female salespeople would even flirt with them when introducing the car models. It might be an exaggeration to say that they could throw themselves into someone's arms at any time, but if they really had feelings for each other, it could really develop into a special friendship full of sentiments. However, this had nothing to do with Chen Guang. As the cold wind blew, Chen Guang felt a chill around him. There were many people here, but why did the old man feel lonely and cold? He looked back at the 5 salespeople who were as steady as Mount Tai at the entrance. They were still staring at the door, completely unaware of Chen Guang's resentful gaze. I also want pretty girls to flirt with me. Of course, This time he posted an overweight mosaic showing off his wealth was even more ridiculous. What era was this? Who would have 173 million in their personal account? Who had a brain? Even if it was not a troll, but a true fan of his, they only thought that he was joking and selling jokes. They did not take it seriously. What a joke. This was the logic of a popular person having a lot of controversies. However, Chen Guang ignored these trolls. His retina automatically filtered them, so there was no need to explain. The few salesgirls who were waiting at the door became lively. The prettiest salesgirl seemed to be a Weibo expert. Whenever she had nothing to do, she would go back and forth on Weibo. Yo! Yesterday, that almighty Superman posted on Weibo again. She screamed excitedly and looked at the screen of the phone happily. The few people beside her also moved their faces over. Obviously, these fashionable salesgirls were keeping up with the times and were familiar with every hot topic on Weibo. What did he say? Another new video? Then, the group of salesgirls was stunned. F***CK, Wujing Baolong Mercedes-Benz 4S store. Wasn't that referring to themselves? What the hell? The group of people looked at each other, their minds blank. Who would stand there foolishly for an hour and ignore them? If there was really someone who ignored them, it could only be that young man from just now, right? He had only been here for less than 5 minutes. The manager was also attracted by the 5 salesgirls' movements. He came over with a sullen face. What are you looking at? Let me see. The salesgirls knew that they were in trouble. They handed over their phones with bitter faces. When the manager saw it, he was instantly enraged. His face turned green. Chen Guang secretly chuckled. Who asked you to ignore me? You're in trouble, aren't you? He. Chapter 348. The manager immediately scolded. Who is this guy? Isn't this too much? How can our service be considered bad? It's written in the novels that when the male lead barges in with a shabby appearance, he will be surrounded by at least 3 salespeople the moment he enters the shop, let alone standing in the shop for an hour. A singer in charge of despising and ridiculing. How can a pauper like you deserve to come to our store? Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself? Then the second person has to jump out and tell them to get lost. Don't dirty our noble and elegant floor tiles. Their attitude must be arrogant and their nostrils must be 45 degrees to the sky, or else they will lose their imposing manner. Then the third person jumps out and is responsible for chasing them away. Their methods must be fierce and the force of their shoving cannot be small. Just when the weak male lead is about to be pushed out of the door, he suddenly explodes. The male lead waved his hand and threw out a centurion black card. You bunch of idiots who don't recognize Mount Tai. Look at what I have in my hand. All of us salespeople have been slapped in the face, and that's not all. Suddenly, a rich man who appears on TV every day popped up. Big Brother Chow, why are you here? Did these idiots make you angry? Blah, 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 blah. Then I will be responsible for apologizing and licking the boss's boots. Later on, all 5 of you will be fired. Do you understand? Damn, this manager is so cunning. I thought you are one of us, but you are playing tricks with me. Since you have already exposed me, how can I still play? Eavesdropping on their conversation, Chen Guang's face darkened. This manager is definitely one of us. He is an experienced web and novel reader. It is impossible to guard against his tricks. The salespeople thought they were going to be scolded, but now, they were laughing their heads off. If we salespeople are really as stupid as what is written in the books, we would have starved to death a long time ago. Even if they are dressed shabbily, they are not beggars. There is no need to chase them away. Furthermore, didn't you buy some takeaway for that beggar who almost fainted from hunger last week? Manager, you taught us to be a person before we can do anything. We all understand that. A male salesperson laughed and said. The invisible licking was the most lethal. The manager was also a layman, so he felt very comfortable being patted. Alright. You guys should also be more careful. Don't really become the kind of idiots that are written in novels. Although we are all nameless supporting characters, and as salespeople, we live in the novel to lower our intelligence so that the protagonist can show off and slap his face. But even if we are to be props, we have to be props with brains and standards. He had to adjust his working state and not give others a chance to blackmail him. Since he had been called, he had to do a good job. Although we don't know who this almighty Superman is and why he wants to defame us, we have to learn from this. Remember, even if they don't look like buyers at first glance, you have to give them a warm smile and show some passion for work. If this matter really brings a negative impact to the company, the few of you will really be out of luck. Cheer up. The manager gave them a carrot first, and sure enough, he gave them another carrot. The 5 salespeople were so scared that they trembled all over, and they hurriedly straightened their expressions. Chen Guang looked at the group of salespeople's darkened faces from afar. He felt secretly pleased, but at the same time, he felt a pain in the ass. The opposite manager did not play by the rules. He had completely seen through his tricks and weakened his pleasure. Forget it. I've met an expert. I can't afford to offend him, but can't I just hide? He decisively got up and prepared to leave. If they don't let me have a good time, don't even think about earning a single cent from my pocket. Just as he reached the door, he was stopped by someone. It was not the group of salespeople who were still in a daze, but an unexpected person. His counselor, Zhuo Jingxi. Chen Guang, why are you here? Zhuo Jingxi looked at him with a face full of surprise, and excitedly came forward. Chen Guang was also stunned. He had not seen this plump and beautiful counselor for a long time. He smiled happily and said, I came to look at the car. I returned my Rena to them, and I plan to buy one for myself. You know what I mean. Zhuo Jingxi was also one of the live audience who had witnessed him showing disdain for all the heroes in Xiangjiang. She was well aware of how rich he was. She patted his shoulder and said, I don't care what car you want to change. Although you are not short of money now, you should still save some money. You have money to buy a coffin instead of spending it? Chen Guang chuckled. He was worried that no one would accompany him to look at the car, and he could not make up his mind. Teacher Zhuo suddenly appeared out of nowhere, and he was extremely happy and refreshed. Cici? Who is this? Your student? As the two of them were chatting, a man in a suit and leather shoes with shoulder-length hair came over and asked Zhuo Jingxi. He had the aura of an artist. Zhuo Jingxi frowned and moved closer to Chen Guang, quietly putting some distance between the two of them. Zhou Long, haven't I told you many times? Don't call me Cici, it sounds awkward. This is Chen Guang, my friend. When she introduced Chen Guang, Su Tao had no idea what she was thinking. She actually didn't mention that Chen Guang was her student. On the other side, before Zhuo Jingxi introduced Chen Guang, the man in the suit, Zhou Long, was sizing up Chen Guang with a scrutinizing gaze. He was a rather tall boy who looked very young, and his clothes were not very tasteful. Needless to say, he was the standard poor guy. This was the first impression that Zhou Long gave to Chen Guang. Chen Guang was also sizing up Zhou Long. His hair was combed very neatly, and with the help of hair wax, it seemed to stick to his scalp, as neat as a military parade. On such a hot day, this guy was actually wearing a suit. Did he not feel uncomfortable? There was also a faint scent of men's cologne on his body. Coupled with his slightly hostile gaze, Chen Guang also gave his first impression. A pretentious man, most likely plotting against Zhuo Jingxi. Teacher Zhuo did not say that he was her student, but her friend? This was a bit too much. Just now, when he came over, he deliberately closed the distance between him and Teacher Zhuo, and then Teacher Zhuo avoided him as if he was a fly? At this moment, Chen Guang instantly understood Zhuo Jingxi's thoughts and Zhou Long's thoughts. Brother, why didn't I realize that I was so quick-witted before? She definitely wanted me to help her get rid of the fly. Seeing injustice on the road, I'll help. This small favor, I'll help. On the other side, Zhou Long instantly withdrew his hostility, and a warm smile appeared on his face. He reached out his hand. Hello little Chen, my name is Zhou Long, a professor at Dachuan Conservatory of Music. I teach piano to students. Cicis. Zhou Long. If you call me Cici again, I'm leaving. Whatever car you want to buy has nothing to do with me. Before Zhou Long could finish speaking, Zhuo Jingxi angrily rebuked him. Her face was red, and it looked like she was really angry. Zhou Long could not help but feel a little embarrassed. Sorry. I got used to calling you that when I was young, and I forgot to change it. Please don't mind me. Qin Guang watched the two of them quarrel with interest. This Zhou Long was quite interesting. Even when he apologized to Zhuo Jingxi, he did not forget to show off his relationship with teacher Zhuo in front of him. They had known each other since they were young. How amazing, how amazing. But it's useless. Look at your annoying appearance now. Even I feel embarrassed for you. On the other side, Zhou Long did not dare to provoke Zhuo Jingxi again. Instead, he turned his head and targeted Qin Guang. He took out an exquisite business card from his pocket and handed it to Qin Guang with one hand. He continued to smile and said, Little Qin, this is my business card. May I know where you work? Qin Guang took the business card and did not look at it carefully before putting it in his pocket. He was already being polite enough not to throw it away on the spot. You're too high for your face. I'm still a student. Chapter 349. Zhuo Jingxi, who was beside them, was also anxious. Just now, she had said that Qin Guang was a friend, and Zhuo Long had immediately started probing. It would be awkward if they were exposed. Qin Guang's mind raced. He knew that he had to help teacher Zhuo chase away the flies today. He could not afford to lose face, so he grinned. It's fine if I'm not high up. I'm just doing some business without any capital. It's not elegant, so I didn't say it out loud. As he said that, his left hand smoothly reached to the side and grabbed Zhuo Jingxi's waist, pulling her into his arms. He grinned. Actually, it doesn't matter where I'm high up. What's important is that I'm little Cici's boyfriend. Mr. Zhou, why don't you go somewhere cool? I'm not in the mood to waste time with this pretentious man. If you say another word, I'll immediately slap you in the face with my UBS black card and make you kneel in front of me. When he received the business card just now, he had seen clearly that this Zhuo Long was really a professor at a music school. He was so young, yet he was already a professor. At first glance, he seemed to be very good. Perhaps he was even a slightly famous pianist. How amazing! But I'm sorry, the person standing in front of you is a 200 million nouveau riche younger than you. Qin Guang's action not only shocked Zhuo Long, but Zhuo Jingxi was also stiff and at a loss. She was so nervous that she did not know where to put her hands. Zhuo Jingxi was about to cry. Qin Guang, how did you react so quickly? I just had that idea and did not communicate it to you, but not only did you understand, you even put it into practice so quickly. But you're making too much of a commotion. You have to take it one bite at a time, okay? Oh no. Suddenly, a middle-aged woman jumped out from the side. She looked at Qin Guang and Zhuo Jingxi as if it was the end of the world. She then turned to look at Zhuo Long, whose face was so dark that ink could be ground. Little C, what's going on? Who is this guy? Zhuo Jingxi's voice sounded like she was about to cry. Mom, this is my friend. He's just joking. Dad, listen to me. He's not serious at all and always likes to joke around. Dad, calm down. Before Zhuo Jingxi could finish her sentence, she abruptly broke free from Qin Guang's embrace and waved at the middle-aged man who was about to rush over with a straight face. Holy shit. Qin Guang was so scared that he peed his pants. Wash the motor. Teacher Zhua, you should have said that your parents were here too. This was awkward. If her parents weren't here, Qin Guang would have beaten Zhou Long to the ground if necessary. But now, this feeling was very strange. He was flirting with someone else's daughter, and as her parents, he felt like he had to lower his head in front of them. It took a lot of effort to convince Zhuo Jingxi's parents that Qin Guang was only joking. Of course, when the two elders saw that Qin Guang's expression wasn't any better, they only felt that Zhuo Jingxi's friend was really not serious. This was great. Not only did Zhou Long ask what Qin Guang did for a living, but Zhuo Jingxi's parents also joined in the line. Qin Guang was in so much pain that he almost wanted to turn around and run away. But looking at Zhuo Jingxi's pitiful look, he couldn't bear to leave her alone. In the end, he still managed to pull out a slightly more reliable identity. That's right, Qin Guang bragged that he was a glorious web novelist and that Zhuo Jingxi was a pen pal. He really hit the nail on the head. A few years ago, when Zhuo Jingxi was an undergraduate, she wrote online novels out of interest. There were all kinds of literary characters and all kinds of bitterness. She probably only managed to write about 200,000 to 300,000 words before she threw herself into the Mariana Trench. At that time, she even excitedly showed off to her parents that she wanted to write a female version of Struggle and adapt it into a television series. It would set records in the ratings and from then on, reach the peak of her life. Although she failed in the end, it was precisely because of this past that Qin Guang's made-up identity matched with Zhuo Jingxi's past. Of course, Zhou Long gave him a business card, but Qin Guang didn't have one. Why would a lousy writer need a business card? It was just that his identity as a web novelist had a slight after-effect. Zhuo Jingxi's parents looked at him with even more displeasure. A web novelist who shut himself in his room all day long meant that he was a homebody and a useless person. Looking at his flirtatious manner just now, it made him seem even more unreliable. If it wasn't for Zhuo Jingxi's mother would have already given Qin Guang the title of stinky hooligan and little pervert. Qin Guang also had a face full of tears. He didn't expect web novelists to have no human rights. If he had known, he would have said something else. It would have been better to get closer to Lu Fei's Lu Chemical Industry and say that he was CEO Lu's secretary. Unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret in this world. Zhuo Jingxi also sensed that the situation was not good. Mom, Dad, don't be like this. Writing web novels doesn't steal or rob. If you work hard, you can also change your life. Look at Tang, Qin Guang nodded. Third young master Tang. He thought to himself, thank third young master Qi. Every time we are looked down upon by others, we can always use you to show off. Although you earn 100 million a year, and that lousy guy earns tens of thousands a year, no matter how big the difference is, we are all doing the same thing, right? Zhuo Jingxi's mother was indeed a tough middle-aged woman. She didn't have the slightest bit of goodwill toward Qin Guang. She rolled her eyes. Forget it. There are millions of web novelists in China. How many of them are third young master? Your friend is obviously up to no good. Don't interact with him in the future. She used the words, up to no good, very well. Not only did she have literary talent, but she also scolded people. Not only did she not lower her social status, but she also pointed out the fact that this kid was a stinky hooligan. She really didn't leave any face for Qin Guang. Qin Guang spat in his heart. Run. Without another word, he turned around and planned to run. He wasn't someone who could pinch his nose and serve others well. He definitely couldn't stick his warm face to someone's cold butt. Forget it. Today, Zhou Long had teacher Zhuo's parents as bodyguards. The old man was a wise man who knew better than to fight when the odds were against him. It was better to run first. Tonight, he would find out where the piano player lived. When he got back, he would give every one of his fingers the Qilin arm overclocked vibration service. He would take drastic measures to deal with him. Zhou Long watched from the side as Zhuo Jingxi's parents protected him. He was indescribably pleased. F***ck, we didn't even have a disagreement when we met, and you F***king made a move on my fiancé. If it wasn't for the fact that you're quite strong and I might not be able to beat you, I would have F***king beaten you up. You actually told me to go away. Little lousy writer, why don't you take a piss and look at yourself in the mirror? You don't even dare to say what kind of book you wrote. You don't even need to think to know that it's one of those vulgar, ambiguous, and borderline novels on Qidian. And you even said that you're doing a business without any capital? You need capital to shut yourself at home and write web novels, okay? You don't want electricity? You don't want internet fees? You don't want living expenses? In this world, those who can do a business without capital are all people with great means and strong connections, okay? That definitely doesn't include a lousy writer like you. Zhuo Jingxi saw that Chen Guang was so angry that he wanted to leave, and thought that he was really angry. She first stomped her feet, and with unprecedented courage, she shouted at Zhuo Jingxi's mother, who was still rolling her eyes, "Mom, how can you be like this? He's my friend. If you continue to be like this, you too will accompany Zhou Long to buy a car today. This has nothing to do with me." After shouting, she turned around and chased after Chen Guang. Faced with her sudden outburst, Zhuo Jingxi's parents looked at each other, not knowing what was going on. Chapter 350. Her daughter, Zhuo Jingxi, had always had a gentle temperament since she was young. She had almost never been angry. Even though the two elders knew that she had always been against Zhou Long, as her parents, she still endured it submissively under their insistence. Even though she had been fighting and delaying, she had only done it through crazily studying, taking the postgraduate entrance exams, taking the PhD, and now participating in the administration of the school to prove herself. Although she was determined to fight, her methods were gentle. Just like today, before coming here, she had clearly said no less than 100 times that she was not married to Zhou Long, nor did she want to marry him. She did not acknowledge their fiancé relationship at all. If he wanted to buy a car, he could buy it. It had nothing to do with her. She did not want to accompany him at all. But in the end, the two elders still dragged her here, and the atmosphere was barely harmonious until she met this web novel writer. Although Zhuo Jingxi had always been cold to Zhou Long, at least she had been forcing herself to smile. But she actually shouted at us just now. You shouted at us for a so-called friend who held your waist and took advantage of you in front of your fiancé? Do you know how much effort we put into matchmaking you and Zhou Long? Do you know that after marrying Zhou Long, you will be able to live a rich life without worries for the rest of your life? He was in the arts and had achieved Zhou Long's current achievements before the age of 30. He was a professor at a music academy, had won an international award, and was now a well-known master in the country. A son-in-law like this was more reliable than a government official of the same age. As long as he could still play the piano, he would never be short of money. Why don't you know that we are doing this for your own good? Zhuo Long was also at a loss. He was 4 years older than Zhuo Jingxi and had watched her grow up. He had always regarded her as his most important sister. Even after he became a rising star in the domestic piano world and was known as the youngest master in the country, he still felt that the one he wanted to spend the rest of his life with the most was still Zhuo Jingxi. I care about you so much, why did you reject me like this? He had also seen Zhuo Jingxi's crazy work, and he knew what Zhuo Jingxi was after. Wasn't it because she wanted to prove herself in front of her parents? She wanted them to understand that without him, Zhuo Jingxi, Zhuo Jingxi, could still live a good and happy life. Originally, Zhou Long did not care about this. It was not easy to make a name for oneself in the school's administrative system. However, Zhou Long panicked when he heard that she had been selected as an advanced counselor this semester and had also become a member of the Youth League Committee of the college. He was afraid that if he continued to wait like this, she would really be able to find a way in the administration during her PhD studies. If that happened, he would truly lose her. This time, Zhuo Jingxi's parents had forcefully brought her here. This was also the opportunity that Zhou Long had long prepared for a showdown. First, he would buy the car and put it under Zhuo Jingxi's name. Then, he would buy the house. Then, the two of them would be completely settled. He really did not want to drag things out like this. Zhuo Jingxi was not in the mood to care about what her parents and Zhou Long were struggling over. She jogged to catch up with Qin Guang, who was walking far away. Qin Guang, wait a minute. Don't be angry, I'll apologize to you on behalf of my mother, okay? Qin Guang quietly turned his head and chuckled. Teacher Zhuo, don't overthink things. Would I really be angry over such a small matter? I'm not such a petty person. I understand what you're planning. Don't worry, I'll go smash Zhou Long's fingers tonight and take drastic measures against him. What? Don't do anything stupid. Zhuo Jingxi panicked and grabbed Qin Guang's shoulder. You can't think like that. It's against the law, and you'll go to jail. Qin Guang continued to chuckle. I'll just wear a mask. I guarantee that no one will know. No, I can't let you take this risk. Although I hate him very much, and that marriage arrangement was something that my parents and he agreed to all along, I never agreed to it myself. But I won't allow you to use violence. You're my student. I have to take responsibility for you. How can I let you hurt someone for me? Qin Guang stopped and shrugged. Then what do you think we should do? Zhuo Jingxi shook her head blankly. I don't know what to do either. Just keep me company today. I'm really disgusted by Zhou Long. She pulled Qin Guang again and quickly told Qin Guang the whole story. Qin Guang glared at her with a look of pity and anger. I was wondering why you work so hard. So there's something like this. If you don't like him, just say so. I can't help it. I've said it so many times, but it's useless. If it was useful, I wouldn't be here today. Zhuo Jingxi shook her head helplessly. You're too weak. If you had the vigor that you had when you talked back to Wang Ren, this would have been over a long time ago. What day and age are we living in now? There's no such thing as an arranged marriage. You didn't even agree to it, so how can there be a fiancé? Nonsense. Qin Guang could not help but pity Zhuo Jingxi. Zhuo Jingxi continued to shake her head. It's not the same. Wang Ren is Wang Ren. They're my parents after all. I can't do it. If you can't do it, then you'll disgust yourself for the rest of your life? Since your parents like him so much, why don't you let them adopt him as their godson? The effect will be the same. Stop joking. I don't understand. Although I also feel disgusted by that Zhou guy, since he's so good at the piano, he's quite rich, and he likes you, why don't you agree to it? I think it's pretty good. Zhuo Jingxi glared at him fiercely. Don't you ever say something like that again. I'm so angry. Just because he likes me, I have to like him? Just because he's rich, I have to live with him? Then aren't you quite rich too? You're richer than him. You just have to shout, and I'll live with you. Qin Guang smacked his lips and said seriously, that's possible. Zhuo Jingxi was taken aback by his serious expression. Hey! Don't take what I said seriously, okay? I want to live my life with people, not with money. Besides, I'll be graduating next year. I still want to continue my studies. I don't want to get married at all. I'm not studying PhD, just to hide from Zhou Long. I really want to become an outstanding environmental researcher. I want to do more for our country, no, for humanity. The pollution is too serious now. Sooner or later, humanity will lose its last piece of pure land. Qin Guang was shocked by her righteous words. He felt that Zhuo Jingxi's face was glowing like a saint's. Why are you looking at me like that? Great man. I've become your fan, Teacher Zhuo. In the end, Qin Guang did not leave and was pulled back by Zhuo Jingxi. Her goal was very simple. She really wanted to use Qin Guang to help her block Zhou Long. Her reason was also very simple. Chen Guang knew cars very well. Didn't Zhou Long want to buy a car? I'll find a real master to help you choose one. In fact, Chen Guang didn't have much research on these basic models, but he had mingled with Hong Kong's golden wrenched Jia for a few days, not to mention that he was an invincible racing god. So it wasn't a problem for him to come up with some nonsense to fool others. Chapter 351. Even though Mr. and Mrs. Zhuo were extremely displeased with Chen Guang, they had already forced him to flip out because of her writer friend, so they decided to hold it in. The person who was the most displeased was, of course, Zhuo Long. Unfortunately, Zhuo Jingxi had already said it out loud. If you don't give face to my friend and make things difficult for me, then don't buy this stupid car today. This has nothing to do with me anyway. Chen Guang's appearance not only pleased Zhuo Jingxi but also disgusted Mr. and Mrs. Zhuo as well as Mr. and Mrs. Zhuo. Even if Zhou Long could not hold it in anymore, he could only stare viciously at Chen Guang's back. A lousy writer dares to steal my woman? Fine, since you're so shameless, I'll show you the difference between us today. Zhuo Jingxi is mine. No one can take her away from me. Even if she really falls for you, you can only watch as I get her. You pathetic loser. Xiao Zhou, don't be angry. Xiao Si is probably under too much pressure from work and is a little angry. After you guys get married, we'll make sure she cuts off all contact with these useless friends. You've watched Xiao Si grow up, you know she's not that kind of girl. Mrs. Zhuo comforted him. Zhou Long nodded. Auntie, I'm fine. I understand. Zhou Long thought to himself, I really don't need you to point this out. I'm still staring at Zhuo Jingxi, isn't it because I, who have read countless people, can tell at a glance that she's still a virgin? Zhou Long thought to himself, you really don't need to point this out. This family drama was witnessed by the salespeople at the entrance of the 4S store. As expected of a big store that prided itself on top-notch service. When the group of people returned, the 5 of them still had that super professional sweet smile on their faces, completely forgetting that they were about to hold their stomachs from laughing so hard just now. It was still the trendy, tall saleswoman who was the sharpest and smartest. Before the 4 of them got close, she pretended to be pleasantly surprised. Aren't you the great pianist Mr. Zhou who played a song on the provincial station the day before yesterday? The winner of this year's Vienna Music Prize. Although Zhou Long had been hearing similar words recently, this was the most pleasing to the ear. He turned around and pretended to smile awkwardly at Zhuo Jingxi and her family. I'm really sorry. I've just made a name for myself, but I get recognized everywhere. It's quite troublesome. As he spoke, he discreetly glanced at Chen Guang, who was standing next to Zhuo Jingxi, expressionlessly with dead fish eyes. He raised his eyebrows smugly. That smell and that meaning were self-evident. I'm a piano master that everyone knows. Who do you think you are? Chen Guang didn't even want to look at him. In short, he was going to wait for him to jump to a higher place, and then he would ruthlessly pull him down. You won't die from the fall. Who didn't have money? What's a master pianist? I've raced for a few days and earned 200 million, okay? Zhuo Jingxi saw Zhou Long's actions clearly. If it was in the past, she might have felt embarrassed and distressed. After all, Zhou Long was too successful and dazzling. But why did she feel that Zhou Long looked like a clown today? Chen Guang was also here to buy a car. With his current net worth, there was no way he would buy a car of the level of Rena. Thinking about how Chen Guang had called him a lousy writer, Zhuo Jingxi understood what he was thinking. This guy was really bad. On the other side, Zhou Long had decisively chosen the smartest and tall beauty. The man who was originally in the line looked at the pile of people with a bitter smile. It was not uncommon for customers to choose salespeople. As long as it wasn't too excessive, the manager would usually not interfere. The workplace was heartless. A moment of carelessness could lead to a trap. Zhou Long walked at the front. As he made eye contact with the saleswoman, he turned around and smiled at the crowd. See, Jinxie. Uncle and Auntie, come and help me. Even though Chen Guang had casually proven that he knew cars, Zhou Long still chose to ignore him. Zhou Jingxi's parents walked quickly. They felt that the saleswoman and Zhou Long were too familiar with each other. Zhou Jingxi walked slowly with Chen Guang. When the crowd was a little further away, Zhou Jingxi asked, "Oh right, you're buying a car today, right?" Chen Guang knew what she was thinking. "Yes, but I haven't decided what to buy yet. Let's see what this Zhou guy wants. Anyway, it'll be 3 times more expensive." Zhou Jingxi was shocked. Don't be so wasteful. Even if you have money, you can't spend it like this." Chen Guang sighed. "I have a very special reason. You won't understand. In any case, I can't buy a cheap car." Zhou Jingxi saw that he had made up his mind. Even though she felt that it was a little inappropriate, she remembered that he had almost 200 million in his pocket. It would not be too much even if he bought a Ferrari. Since she couldn't persuade him, she would just let him be. The group followed the enthusiastic saleswoman and began to stroll around the store. Facing real customers, this girl was really going all out. She talked non-stop all the way, not even stopping to take a sip of water. Zhou Long knew Zhou Jingxi well. When he found an opportunity, he asked, "Jingxi, what do you think of this car? Do you like it? Buy it if you like it. Or rather, Jingxi, I think this car can be used as a wedding car. We'll definitely have to borrow a Bentley from my friend for the wedding car, but it'll be more meaningful if we mix our own car with the motorcade. I think the E-Series is good. Even though the C-Series looks young and fashionable, it's a little too low class. It doesn't suit your temperament, Cece. Don't call me Cece." Okay, I won't." Zhou Jingxi was annoyed by Zhou Long. She turned around to look for Chen Guang for help, but saw that he was being held back by her mother. She felt helpless. Mother Zhou smiled insincerely and asked, "Xiao Chen, how much do you earn in a year from writing novels?" Chen Guang grinned. "I just lost a book and dropped it. The new book hasn't hit the shelves yet. I reckon that when it does, there'll be at least 1,000 subscriptions. In a month, I can earn about 10,000 yuan. Xiao Chen, your income is not good enough. Look at Zhou Long. Other television stations pay him at least 30,000 yuan to appear on their programs." Chen Guang secretly rolled his eyes. Nonsense. At Zhou Long's level, what kind of master was he? On the surface, it looked like the television station paid him tens of thousands of yuan to appear on their programs. God knew how much money he had secretly given away just to appear on their programs. "Although I don't know much about it, I know my own people. I can get 100,000 yuan for nothing just by working in the production team, okay?" The real estate company also invites him to perform a song or two from time to time. One song costs at least 10,000 yuan, and it only takes half an hour, Mother Zhou said again. That was the truth. Chen Guang shrugged. "Auntie, if you have something to say, please say it directly." Mother Zhou gave him a headache. "I just said it directly, then you turned around and walked away. Now you want me to say it directly again? Did he drive off because of me again?" Chapter 352. Mother Zhou was also on the verge of breaking down. "Why don't you have any self-awareness? Can't you just find an excuse to get out of here? Auntie will give you a piece of advice. You're still young. Before you succeed in your career, you should focus on your career." Mother Zhou was still quick-witted. Even though she was cursing him inwardly, she still spoke as if she was an elder and advised Chen Guang with good intentions. In a different situation, in a different context, her words would really be the golden advice of an elder. But in this situation, it didn't feel right. Although Chen Guang wasn't happy, this was his teacher's mother after all. It wouldn't be good to go too far. "Thank you, Auntie, for the reminder. I understand, I understand. If you understand, then leave. Mother Zhuo was also defeated by Chen Guang's pestering. I've roamed the community for decades and have never tasted defeat. Now I've met my match and met someone as thick-skinned as me. I can't accept this. Xiao Si and Zhuolong have been together since they were young. We know Zhuolong very well. He's talented and honest. The elders on both sides are also familiar with each other. They're a match made in heaven. Xiao Chen, you're Xiao Si's friend. You should help us persuade her on this matter. In today's world, life is so stressful. You can't be willful when getting married. Mother Zhuo continued. Chen Guang spat in his heart. Zhuolong was willful my ass. Didn't you see how many glances he'd silently exchanged with that salesgirl? Were you all blind? Marriage is a lifelong thing. You should find someone you like. You can't be careless. Chen Guang seemed to be following Mother Zhuo's words, but his meaning was the complete opposite. Mother Zhuo's expression changed. This kid is really stubborn. I actually lost in a quarrel. Is a web novelist this good? Even if he's a flop author, he's still so eloquent. Looks like I can only use facts to make him back off. Right, Xiao Si said, you know cars. Hurry up and give her some advice. Don't let Xiao Si suffer. This car, Zhuolong, has to be under Xiao Si's name. As Mother Zhuo spoke, she pushed Chen Guang forward, intending to let him see the cruelest reality in the world. Let him understand that the furthest distance in the world is not that I love you but you don't love me, but that even if we love each other, I don't deserve you. Our Jing Si was just fooled by your flowery mouth. I won't let you have your way. Chen Guang didn't like to think about such trivial matters, but he had to help Zhuo Jingxi today. He had no choice. Even if he didn't like it, he had to do it. He instantly understood Mother Zhuo's plan. Fine, it's fine. With your attack power, you can't break through the defense of my Azeroth rampart, which is worth 170 million. Zhou Long will be just as useless. Originally, he did not intend to give Zhou Long any advice, but since Mother Zhuo insisted on pushing him forward, and coincidentally, Zhuo Jingxi also cast him a pleading look. Chen Guang went up to him with a smile. Seeing that he had finally arrived, Zhou Long first chuckled at him. He thought to himself, I've been waiting for you for a long time. Can't stand my mother-in-law anymore? Do you think you can escape by running to me? Just wait for my fatal blow. Little Chen, come over and help take a look. Give me some advice. Zhou Long turned back and said to Chen Guang with a smile. Chen Guang pursed his lips. I can give you advice, but don't call me Little Chen. I'm not familiar with you. Zhou Long's heart hurt from this. His expression suddenly became ugly and ferocious. Zhuo Jingxi, who was beside him, saw that the situation was not good and quickly coughed. Zhou Long forcibly suppressed the anger in his heart. I'll bear with you. Little Chen, you're quite fond of joking at such a young age. Zhou Long gritted his teeth and said again. Chen Guang ignored him. It was obvious that he would ignore him if he called him Little Chen. On the other side, Zhuo Jingxi was already chatting with Chen Guang. Little Cici, what are you busy with recently? Chen Guang chuckled. When he called her Little Cici, Zhuo Jingxi felt goosebumps all over her body. When she thought about how Chen Guang was actually her student, the feeling of silliness was even more intense. But she only felt silliness, but she did not resist it at all. I'm graduating next year. I have to start preparing for my doctoral thesis now. The experimental design is almost done. I'll probably start preparing for the experiment in a few days. Zhuo Jingxi said with a smile. My professor is quite optimistic about my research direction. If I do it well and publish the thesis, I'll have a chance of getting a decent SCI impact factor. Zhou Long felt like he was about to explode. I called you Cici, and you wanted to tear me apart. This B** called you Little Cici, and I'm about to die from disgust. But you're actually willing to do it. Zhou Long felt like he could not take it anymore. He pretended to grab Zhuo Jingxi's hand and pulled her to his side. Then, he turned his head and pretended to point at the car. Jingxi, this is our wedding car, after all. Why don't you come and take a look? But when she pulled him over and finished speaking, Zhou Long squeezed hard. He felt that something was wrong. Why was this hand so much bigger and stronger than he imagined? Zhou Long turned his head and almost got a fright when he saw Chen Guang's big face right in front of him. Before Zhou Long could scream, Chen Guang suddenly withdrew his hand. F***CK. Do people in the arts have to have such strong tastes these days? Mr. Zhou, why are you holding my hand for no reason? You're suddenly like this. It's hard for me to do anything. Zhou Long was disgusted. When he reached over, it was clearly Zhuo Jingxi's hand that was there. How did he end up pulling this guy's hand? And now he was making a false accusation. The pretty saleswoman next to him looked at him strangely. On the other side, Zhuo Jingxi covered her mouth and almost laughed out loud. She had thought that he was naughty, and now it seemed that she was right. But she immediately adjusted her expression and put on a straight face. She said coldly, "Wedding car? This isn't a wedding car. This is your own car. When did I agree to get married? Don't spout nonsense." She might not have the courage to slap Zhou Long's face in the past, but with Chen Guang by her side, Zhuo Jingxi seemed to have borrowed the courage from this student of hers, despite the latter being useless. Zhou Long almost wanted to leave in a huff. There was no way to talk. Mother Zhuo could not stand it anymore. She gritted her teeth and pulled Zhuo Jingxi to the side. She made up a random excuse, saying that they were going to look at the car models that women liked. Mother Zhuo's plan was also very simple. She could not let Chen Guang and Zhuo Jingxi get together. Otherwise, with the two of them relying on each other, today's matter would definitely be completely ruined. It was better to pull Zhuo Jingxi away and let Zhou Long do his best. That way, this Chen brat would know to back off. When the mother and daughter were far away, Zhou Long's forced smile suddenly darkened. "Chen, you deliberately came here to cause trouble today, didn't you?" Chapter 353. Chen Guang curled his lips. "No, it was purely a coincidence. You asked Xiao Sisi to help you look at the car. This one knows a bit about cars, and we just happened to meet. Xiao Sisi was thinking about the money in your pocket, so she asked me to help." "What do you mean by this? You have a problem? You don't know what's good for you? Fine, then I'll turn around and leave without another word. So what if you're rich, you're trying to take advantage of me? You keep saying that you're Xiao Sisi's fiancé, but from what I heard from her mouth, that's not the case at all. The one with the surname Zhou, your head is hot, it's no fun at all. You say, you're still a person, so how can you be so despicable? She clearly doesn't like you, yet you're still trying to stick to her? If it weren't for uncle and auntie taking advantage of you, do you think Xiao Sisi would even care about you?" Zhuo Long was a hoodlum, but Chen Guang was even more of a hoodlum, more ruffian, more scoundrel. Even 10 Zhuo Longs added together wouldn't be Chen Guang's match. You bastard. How can you be like this?" Zhuo Long's hands were trembling, and he was on the verge of exploding. Chen Guang only looked at him with a fake smile, not saying a word. Chen Guang was wearing a short-sleeved shirt today. Intentionally or unintentionally, he flexed his biceps. That look in his eyes and posture was clearly saying, "Come, hurry up and do it, I'll wait for you." At this time, Chen Guang finally revealed his ferocious fangs of a veteran troublemaker. Father Zhuo, who had been standing to the side without saying a word, finally couldn't hold it in any longer. He was really afraid that if this continued, the two sides would start fighting. If Zhuo Long could win, he wouldn't even interrupt. But it was clear that Zhuo Long, who dabbled in art, wasn't his match. Fine, strictly speaking, this troublemaker Chen Guang was also dabbling in art, just a bit lower class. At this point, no matter how Chen Guang and Zhuo Jingxi tried to explain that they were just friends, he just liked to joke around. Father Zhuo and Mother Zhuo could tell that this Chen Guang definitely had feelings for their daughter. His daughter was definitely interested in this web novel writer. Perhaps her daughter had already guessed that Zhuolong was going to lay his cards on the table today and had purposely arranged this show. She was waiting for this brat named Chen Guang to stir up trouble and ruin her plans. If it weren't for the fact that Father and Mother Zhuo had absolute confidence in Zhuo Jingxi's character and knew that she was more traditional, Mother Zhuo would have long since tested her and found out that Zhuo Jingxi was still a virgin. The two elders would have long since searched for a stick to beat Chen Guang with. Father Zhuo had been holding back because he knew his wife was very strong. In the end, not only had his wife been defeated, but Zhou Long had also lost. He had to step up, or else today's good day would be completely ruined by this troublemaker. All right. One of you is Xiao Xi's fiancé, and the other is her friend. Both of you stop talking. Look at the car. Father Zhuo came forward and stood between the two of them, saying one sentence after another. Chen Guang chuckled. Uncle, you're right. I don't understand what he's doing. We were just talking nicely, but out of the blue, he suddenly called me Chen. Even a clay figurine has a temper. How strange. Why are people so uncultured nowadays? Facing Father Zhuo, he still gave in to him. Although he didn't like the word fiancé from this old man's mouth, he still had to give him some face. Father Zhuo had his back to Chen Guang and was desperately trying to signal Zhuolong with his eyes. Stop fooling around, he couldn't beat him in a verbal fight. Zhuolong forcibly suppressed his thoughts. He firmly believed that he hadn't shown his trump card yet. As long as Zhuo Jingxi knew that the car was going to be placed under her name, no normal woman would be able to resist such a temptation. Apart from that, he had already set his eyes on a mansion worth 2 million. As long as she nodded, he would put her name and his on the car. This was all money that this lousy writer could never earn in his entire life. Chen, how are you going to compete with me? As long as I can get her, I'll get back the face I lost today. Yes, it's my fault, Zhuolong replied in a muffled voice. Zhuolong replied in a muffled voice as he continued, since Chen Guang is my friend, then he's my friend. I lost control of my emotions earlier. He didn't expect this guy to be so tolerant. Chen Guang was also shocked. You're so paranoid that you've turned into a demon. Teacher Zhuo is already treating you like this, and you're still able to tolerate it? If it were me, I definitely wouldn't be able to tolerate it. You're definitely a pervert. A melon that's forcefully picked won't be sweet. Teacher Zhuo has already expressed such a simple principle so clearly, so why can't you understand it? Besides, aren't you also not easy to deal with? Just based on the way you flirted with that salesgirl, she might even run into your bed tonight. The more Zhuolong behaved like this, the more Chen Guang made up his mind to tear down this temple and ruin this marriage. I can't let the tragedy of ancient arranged marriages happen in modern times. I'm a loyal defender of the freedom of love. Both sides took a step back. Chen Guang wasn't in the mood to argue with Zhuolong anymore. He turned around and left. He sat down with Zhuo Jingxi, who was bored to death after a quick stroll. Mother Zhuo could only glare fiercely at Chen Guang, then turned around to comfort Zhuolong's wounded heart. You see, my family is indeed like this. Sometimes it's really painful for me to be born into this family. Zhuo Jingxi sipped her tea and sighed as she looked at her mother's back. At this time, Chen Guang turned around to comfort her. Don't say that. You're being paranoid. In fact, uncle and auntie are really doing this for your own good. After all, in the eyes of ordinary people, Zhuolong is indeed a rich husband. He's young and rich. Although he's not as handsome as me, he's still handsome. Save it. I know him. He only wants to marry me because he thinks that I can make him proud. Also, he thinks that I'm soft. As long as he can use his parents to kidnap me, I won't be able to control him even if he wants to fool around outside in the future. Zhuo Jingxi saw through everything. By the way, are you interested in being my experimental assistant? My research project is mainly related to the degradation of organic phenolic compounds catalyzed by photocatalysts. Although it sounds grand, I've made the experimental plan very detailed. You can totally follow along and participate in the experimental process. You only have 1 year left before you graduate, right? After you graduate, whether you want to go to graduate school or continue working in the environmental protection industry, it'll be good for you to come into contact with experiments early. Zhuo Jingxi found a particularly high-sounding reason. Chen Guang was a little tempted. If Zhuo Jingxi hadn't mentioned it, he wouldn't have realized it himself. Yes, he would graduate in June next year. Regardless of whether he was the owner of the Heavenly Holy Grail or not, he had to be busy with something. He couldn't just hold a cup and stay at home all day, waiting for the world in the cup to come one by one. Inside was the world in the cup, outside was a shut-in's house. How could he live like that? Although he muddled along during his 3 years in university, skipping classes was king, Chen Guang really didn't fail many subjects. He was actually quite interested in environmental science courses. Listening to Zhuo Jingxi's words and thinking of her saintly appearance, Chen Guang couldn't help but feel a little tempted, but also a little lost. Teacher Zhuo's dream was to change the environment, control pollution, and contribute to all of humanity. It seemed very illusory, unreal, and even a little ridiculous. But she must have only told him that no matter how ridiculous a dream was, it was still a dream. What did he want to do? Keep farming the world in the cup, learn one skill after another from Liuli, and go out to show off when he had the chance. Keep building god statues? Then what? What do I want more? My life definitely can't be a shut-in guarding the Heavenly Holy Grail. That kind of life is a little too boring, and it's even more unworthy of the cup in my hand. While caressing the Heavenly Holy Grail, he wasn't in a hurry to reply to Zhuo Jingxi's invitation. Instead, he looked out the window and let his mind wander. What is my dream? I can't be a salted fish without dreams. Chapter 354. Zhuo Jingxi did not expect that her invitation would have such a huge impact on Chen Guang. Seeing that he was deep in thought, she did not say anything to interrupt him. On the other side, Zhou Long had finally decided on what car he wanted to buy. In fact, choosing a car was just a pretense to kidnap Zhuo Jingxi. He had already decided on the car he wanted. It was a Mercedes-Benz E200L sports model that cost about 400,000 yuan. But because of the existence of Chen Guang, he changed his mind at the last minute. If he wanted to play, he would play big. So even if it would put a strain on his finances in the short term, he still gritted his teeth and decided to force his way into the E400L sports luxury model that cost 700,000 yuan. After finally making this decision, the salesgirl was also overjoyed. Her face was filled with a smile that could not be wiped away. On the other side, Zhou Long and Zhuo Jingxi's parents also walked over to where Chen Guang and Zhuo Jingxi were sitting with smiles on their faces. It was time to reveal his trump card and let that poor boy know how powerful he was. I can give Zhuo Jingxi a car worth 700,000 yuan. What can you give her? Zhou Long thought so. Zhuo Jingxi's parents looked at Zhuo Jingxi, who was sitting with Chen Guang, with some heartache. Daughter, look at how good this man is to you. Where in this world can you find a man who is willing to give you a luxury car without getting married? These two men, one is already successful and mature, while the other is still young and frivolous. Can't you see the difference between them? Seeing that the three of them had returned, Zhuo Jingxi looked away from Chen Guang, who was in a daze. Perhaps she knew that her previous behavior was a little too much, so she restrained herself. In fact, as long as Zhou Long did not poke at her, she was not a domineering person. Have you chosen a car? What model? Zhuo Jingxi originally did not care, but out of politeness, she reluctantly asked. Before Zhuo Long could answer, Zhuo Jingxi's mother had already approached them cheerfully. She pulled Zhuo Jingxi towards the E400L display stand. Little C, don't ask. Just come and take a look. Zhuo Jingxi's expression froze. She wanted to struggle free, but in the end, she resisted and stood up. Chen Guang, who was deep in thought, was completely unaware of this. He was unable to extricate himself from his illusory sea of dreams. In the eyes of Zhou Long and the others, his behavior made him look like a troublemaker. He finally knew that the moment they decided on the model of the car, he would lose face, so he simply played dumb. I thought you were really shameless, but it seems like you still know how to be embarrassed. Mother Zhuo secretly rolled her eyes at Chen Guang and pushed Zhuo Jingxi away arrogantly. Chen Guang didn't know how long he had been in a daze. What snapped him out of it was the sound of an argument coming from afar. He turned his head and saw Zhuo Jingxi arguing with her parents and Zhou Long, her face red. I was just absent-minded for a moment, and you guys are quarreling again. It really saves me some trouble. He stood up and followed. It seemed that he still had to go out and save the emperor himself. This is Zhou Long's car. I'm not the one who bought the car. I have nothing to do with Zhou Long. Why is this car under my name? I don't want that. Zhuo Jingxi shouted agitatedly and waved her arms. Her voice was so loud that many people in the shop looked over curiously. Mother Zhuo didn't expect her to be so resistant. With such a big commotion, she felt that it was a little embarrassing to be looked at by others. Xiao Si, lower your voice. There are so many people watching. Your marriage with Zhou Long has already been decided. This car is also a token of Zhou Long's sincerity. Anyway, after you get married, you and your husband should live happily. What's yours is his, and what's his is yours, right? Don't be like this. Father Zhuo also coughed lightly. Xiao Si, your mother is right. Zhou Long really likes you. Don't make things difficult for your mother and I. Zhou Long was also a little embarrassed at the side, but seeing that Father Zhuo and Mother Zhuo were on his side, he regained his courage and hurriedly said, Jingxi, don't misunderstand. I really don't mean anything else. I just saw that it was too tiring for you to drive to work all day, so I bought a car for you. It's not just a car, I even prepared a house. It's in the city, a huge house that's worth more than 2 million. Don't you remember what you said to me when we were young? You said that you would marry me when you grew up. That's right. Xiao Si, don't be stubborn. Really, you don't know how long your father and I have waited for this day. You're our only daughter, and we don't want to die without a grandson to hug us. Mother Zhuo's eyes were filled with tears as she pressed forward step by step. Zhou Long has already done so much for you. He even prepared a house and a car. What are you still hesitating for? Even if you don't think for yourself, you should at least think for your father and me. The commotion here gradually attracted more and more people over. The people around them were all whispering. Most of them felt that Zhuo Jingxi was such a pretentious person. The man had done so much for her, and her parents were about to cry, but she actually didn't know what was good for her at all. She was really too much. The voices of the crowd grew louder and louder. Zhou Long and Father Zhuo and Mother Zhuo's coercion also became more and more intense. Zhuo Jingxi retreated step by step, her face turning pale. You guys planned this long ago, didn't you? Today, he asked me to help look after the car. Did he think that I would happily accept his car like those women, then give up my dream and marry him, a man I don't like? Yes. I did say something like that when I was young. But how old was I back then? Does it count? And Dad. Mom. I know you guys like him, but the person he wants to marry is me. Not the two of you. Why do you have to force me like this? From the day I entered university, you guys kept telling me that Zhou Long wants to marry you, that Zhou Long is your fiancé, and that you are Zhou Long's fiancé. But have you guys respected my choice even once? Have you guys cared about my feelings? Just because he likes me, I have to marry him? Then there are so many people who have liked me since I was young. Do I have to marry every single one of them? I'm a person, not a commodity. I've listened to your arrangements since I was young, even my marriage. I've never agreed to it. But you keep saying that I've already become his fiancée. And now you want me to accept his car here. I really can't do it. Zhuo Jingxi's face turned paler and paler, not even a trace of blood could be seen. What right do you have to kidnap me, my future, my happiness? No. Answer. Yes. Zhuo Jingxi waved her arms crazily. Her parents' coercion, Zhou Long's disdainful liking for her under his gentle facade, and the strange gazes of the bystanders all turned into sharp knives that stabbed into her heart. I've already worked so hard, why do I have to face this kind of fate and live in this kind of family? I can't accept this. Father Zhuo, Mother Zhuo, and Zhou Long were all frightened by her almost crazed state. She was indeed very gentle, submissive, and always patient. But today, she finally broke down, like a spring that had been crushed. Her body became weaker and weaker, and she was about to collapse. Just then, a pair of strong arms wrapped around her shoulders from behind. Little Cece, that's enough. I'm here. Chen Guang smiled and switched to holding Zhuo Jingxi's waist with one hand, holding her tightly. I was distracted just now. I didn't expect to wake up like this. It's my fault. Although I still haven't figured it out, thank you for letting me think about this problem that I should have kept in my heart for the first time. I'll put it aside for now. The most important thing is to do what's in front of me. Don't cry. Leave the rest to me. Chapter 355. If Chen Guang's earlier embrace of Zhuo Jingxi's waist could be explained as a joke, now that he suddenly stood up and hugged her again in front of so many people, it could no longer be explained away as a joke. In that instant, even the onlookers felt that something was wrong. Thinking of the girl's previous resistance and the sudden appearance of the young boy, the onlookers who had been influenced by modern television dramas needed no explanation. As expected, the girl's family must have liked the handsome man in the suit, but the girl herself only liked the young man who looked rather immature and more like a student. That was why she resisted the pressure and refused to accept the car, and even more so refused to accept the house. Some people thought that Zhuo Jingxi was stupid, while others thought that Zhuo Jingxi's pursuit of true love was very touching. Chen. What do you mean? In front of so many people, his fiancée had been hugged by Chen Guang in public. This was 10,000 times more damage than the previous bickering. Zhuo Long's face turned green and white. He could not take it anymore. Zhuo Jingxi's mother also came over like a madman and raised her hand to hit Chen Guang. She cursed, Chen Guang. Let go. In the end, her hand did not go down because Zhuo Jingxi grabbed her hand instead. Mom. Don't do this. Chen Guang turned to look at Zhuo Jingxi's mother. He did not loosen his grip on Zhuo Jingxi at all. Instead, he quietly moved so that he was between Zhuo Jingxi and Zhuo Jingxi's mother. I respect you as an elder, so I call you auntie. No matter how Zhuo Long clamors, I'll just ignore it for now. But auntie, you can't treat me like this. Even if Jingxi and I are not even close, you can't treat me like this. Without waiting for Zhuo Jingxi's mother to speak again, Chen Guang waved his empty hand and pointed at Zhuo Long, who was about to forcibly separate him and Zhuo Jingxi. He said coldly, I know what you're proud of, and what you're relying on. It's just that you think you're rich and amazing, and I'm poor and don't have the right to compete with you. Seeing that Chen Guang was becoming more and more arrogant, the surrounding people's discussions became more and more intense. Gradually, the situation changed. At first, these people thought that Zhuo Jingxi didn't know what was good for her, but now, they were accusing the two elders of coveting Zhou Long's money and trying to sell their daughter. Father Zhuo could no longer sit still. Chen Guang, don't spout nonsense. Xiao Zhou and Xiao Si have known each other since they were young. They can be considered childhood sweethearts. We also know Xiao Zhou very well. What's wrong with us matchmaking them? Do you really know everything? Qin Guang smiled. I have a friend who is also in the entertainment industry. Mr. Zhou, you have a lot of interesting stories, so I don't want to talk about them here. But everyone knows it, right? Of course, he was just spouting nonsense, but Zhou Long's entire body trembled as he looked at Qin Guang in fear. What the hell? How the F***ck could he hit the mark by a fluke? Also, what do you mean by instantly turning into a coward? Your mental fortitude is a little too lacking. Don't talk nonsense. You're deliberately slandering us. Besides, since we're in the entertainment industry, there are times when we can't help ourselves. As elders, we all understand this. This is the career of young people. Mother Zhua, on the other hand, jumped out to help Zhou Long. Qin Guang grinned. Auntie, can I take it that what you're trying to say is that as long as it's for his career, it's okay even if your son-in-law has a life of debauchery outside? As long as the red flag doesn't fall at home, the colored flag flutters outside? Don't pester endlessly. These are two different concepts. This isn't debauchery, it's for work. This is a social event. As long as Xiao Zhou is sincere about Xiao Si, of course we have to understand. As a man, career is the most important. The less capable a man is, the more honest he is. You're a poor web novelist. You don't know what a career is. I will never agree to let Xiao Si suffer with you. I won't agree no matter what. As Mother Zhua spoke, her plump body suddenly became extremely nimble. She dashed to the side and tried to grab Zhua Jingxi's hand. Qin Guang quickly stopped her. Auntie, I understand what you mean. It's still the same thing. Your criteria for choosing a son-in-law is to have money, right? If you must understand it that way, then I won't deny it. At least for you, that's the logic. Because you're poor, you can't do anything. Mother Zhua gritted her teeth and said fiercely. She was already extremely annoyed. All right, I'm really sorry. I'm really rich, richer than you can imagine. I'm probably richer than this piano player. Nonsense. You're just a lousy web novelist. Zhou Long's face was full of mockery. Are you crazy? I'm a novelist, that's right. I'm so lousy that I don't even have the courage to write. But before that, I'm sorry, I'm more like a person. Oh, a rich person. Writing web novels is just something I've always wanted to do, but never had the time to do it. Qin Guang grinned and took out a bank card. Without another word, he suddenly turned around and hugged Zhua Jingxi as he walked towards one of the male salesmen. He pointed at the E400 and said loudly, I'll buy this car now, in full. Immediately. Immediately. Looking at the black bank card in Qin Guang's hand, the salesman did not recognize what kind of card it was, but he felt that what Qin Guang said was probably true. He hurriedly went to call the manager. He could not handle this matter. Zhua Jingxi did not say a word from beginning to end. She only clung tightly to Qin Guang. She was really on the verge of a breakdown just now. No, it should be more accurate to say that she had already broken down. But after Qin Guang appeared, her wavering heart seemed to have found a pillar of support. She never thought that a student could give her such a feeling. It was as if he could single-handedly free her from the fate that had been suppressed for 10 years. His body seemed to be emitting light, the only ray of light in the darkness. She knew that no matter how hard she tried, if she did not change something, sooner or later, she would not be able to resist the constant pressure from her parents, let alone Zhou Long's aggressiveness. She trembled with fear at the thought of marrying a man she didn't like at all and becoming a canary in a cage from then on. But now, Qin Guang appeared. Just as Zhou Long was about to lay his cards on the table, maybe it was a coincidence, maybe it was fate, but no matter what, he finally came. She even felt that it was absurd. As a teacher, how could she be so weak in front of her student? But she could not say a word. She could only stare at Qin Guang in a daze. Her gaze could not be said to be full of love, but it was very easy to misunderstand. Looking at this scene, and seeing that the 4S store manager actually went to do the paperwork, Zhuolong's eyes were about to spit fire. You're pretending. You're pretending. I don't believe it. Qin Guang suddenly grinned. Maybe you don't know much. Then let me tell you something. This card is called the UBS Black Card. This morning, I just used this card to transfer 10 million to someone. Believe it or not, it's up to you. Aren't you rich? Later, I'll show you what a rich person is. The people who had been watching from the side were all dumbfounded. Another twist in the road? This shabbily dressed kid was the real invisible rich man? Maybe it was because Qin Guang said that he would buy the car immediately. These 4 words made the people in the store nervous. His efficiency was so high that it made people's hair stand on end. In less than 2 minutes, the manager had already come over to ask Qin Guang to swipe the card. Qin Guang raised his eyebrows. Didn't you think I was bragging? Come, follow me to take a look. Chapter 356. From the moment Qin Guang took out the black card until the manager came back and told him to swipe the card, father and mother Zhuo were completely bewildered. Of course, like Zhou Long, they didn't believe it at all. But Qin Guang was too confident, and they couldn't bring themselves to doubt him. The manager of the 4S shop was more knowledgeable than them. The last time he had seen a card like this was 2 years ago. At that time, he was still a newbie salesman who had just arrived, and he had seen what it meant to be a real tycoon. The person holding the card entered the shop and swiped the card to pay for the Mercedes-Benz SL Class AMG worth more than 2 million in less than half an hour. Later on, he had seen many rich people, including the American Express centurion who owned the card. But he still recognized it at a glance. That was why he had purposely instructed the finance department to speed up the process, as fast as possible. Now that the tycoon had gotten to his head, he had to quickly pay the money before he changed his mind. No matter how the family drama was going to play out, they had to sell the car first before anything else. The manager led the way, and Qin Guang walked in front with Zhuo Jingxi in his arms, valiant and high-spirited. Behind them were father and mother Zhuo and Zhou Long. By this time, everyone had a hunch. Zhou Long still didn't believe it. He wanted to pull out a knife and cut off Qin Guang's arm that was holding Zhuo Jingxi. But he didn't dare. Father and mother Zhuo had already gone from complete disbelief to skepticism. Especially when they saw the attitude of the 4S shop manager become especially polite, they were even more convinced. The others who wanted to watch the show were even further behind. Some were envious of Zhuo Jingxi, while others thought it was a joke. But in this day and age, people laughed at the poor, not the prostitutes. Many girls, even beautiful saleswomen, felt that no matter what Zhou Long did, as long as a man was willing to give them an E320 worth 6 or 700,000, they would give their bodies to him. They could give up their status, but they could not live without a car. As for this young man, if what he said was true, it would be reasonable for him to turn around and kick Zhou Long away. Of course, this was also determined by one's realm. Zhuo Jingxi had a dream in her heart, and her dream was more valuable than money. She wanted freedom, she wanted to achieve her dream, and she wanted to become a top-notch researcher. For this, not to mention Zhou Long's wealth, even if Qin Guang gave her so much money, she wouldn't agree to it. In other words, if the same thing happened to Lu Fei, it would be even more fun. This old lady lacks everything except money. Get as far away from me as you can. Are you really going to buy this car? Do you like this car? Zhuo Jingxi could finally speak. Her mind gradually became sober. Being hugged by Qin Guang, she felt a little awkward, especially when she felt that her plump body was rubbing against this guy's body. When she thought of her parents behind her, her face turned red. She twisted her body slightly, trying to break free a little. But Qin Guang grinned and whispered in her ear, "Teacher Zhuo, I'm helping you solve this problem. If you want to solve it once and for all, cooperate with me." This car, I don't want it. I don't want to buy such a cheap thing. But in this situation, it's not a big deal to buy one. Your hand is on my butt. Move away. Zhuo Jingxi's face turned red. She stared at him and said, "Behind, there are a lot of people watching." Chen Guang smiled, "Actually, I don't want to. But if I don't do this, how can I make Zhou Long and your parents completely give up? I'm really doing this for your own good." "Is that so?" "Oh, then, okay." Zhuo Jingxi didn't know what she had done. She was clearly against Zhou Long, but at this time, what Chen Guang wanted to do seemed to be no different from Zhou Long. In fact, it was even more overbearing, unreasonable, and perverted. However, she couldn't bring herself to reject it in her heart. In her daze, she felt as if she had returned to the conference room in the academy. It was as if she could see Chen Guang standing up for her and rebuking Wang Renshi with righteous words. In her mind, she thought of the fatal black GTR she saw on the live broadcast. That car, that person, that mountain, that road, that day. He used godlike skills and courage, with a shocking leap into the sky, with unparalleled overbearingness, to make everyone bow in front of him. This student is not the same. Teacher Zhuo, you usually sit for too long, right? What's wrong? Your butt is a little bigger than the average person. Usually, I can't see it, but when I pinch it, I can see it. You, don't say any more. Zhou Long finally broke down. He took a step forward and pushed Chen Guang. Bastard. However, Chen Guang was already prepared for this. He turned around with Zhuo Jingxi in his arms. Although the hand that was holding onto Zhuo Jingxi did not move, his other hand swiftly grabbed onto Zhou Long's hand and pinched onto Zhou Long's finger. Zhou Long grunted, then felt a sharp pain in his fingers. He looked at Chen Guang in a panic. You really dare to hit me? Nonsense, when did I act like someone who only moves his mouth and doesn't use his hands? Don't you play the piano? What's so great about it? Tell me, if I crush your fingers now, will you still be able to play the piano in the future? It's the real kind of crushing. Chen Guang was expressionless. You made the first move. I was just defending myself. As he spoke, the strength in his fingers increased. He really did intend to do that. When Zhuo Jingxi saw this scene, she panicked and immediately shook Chen Guang's arm. Let go. Let go. Chen Guang let go and Zhou Long fell to the ground. He looked at Zhuo Jingxi. You still care about me after all? Chen Guang moved closer and continued to hold Zhuo Jingxi's waist. What do you think? She clearly doesn't want me to cause trouble. Who do you think you are? Right? With that, Chen Guang ignored Zhou Long and quickly caught up with the manager with Zhuo Jingxi, ready to swipe his card. Teacher Zhuo, come and sign. Standing by the cashier, Chen Guang whispered into Zhuo Jingxi's ear. Zhuo Jingxi's face paled and she shook her head. No. I didn't agree to Zhou Long's car, that's why I made a fuss. Teacher Zhuo, you don't understand. You didn't agree to Zhou Long, but you agreed to me. What does that mean? You can make that piano player give up and stop your parents from pressuring you. In the future, you can just push everything to me. The wind is big and the waves are big. I'll take care of it for you. Isn't that good? But you can't give me a car. I'm in no position to accept it. I'm not really giving it to you. I'm just going through the motions in front of them. We can talk about it later in private. You can just quietly transfer the car to me. You know how much money I have in my pocket right now. This bit of money is really nothing. A teacher for a day is a teacher for life. Teacher Zhuo, we still have a long way to go, right? No. Still no. Zhuo Jingxi insisted. Chen Guang curled his lips. Then there's no other way. I was going to give it to you. That's the only way to make that Zhou Long lose all hope. Now I can only use another method. What are you going to do? Chapter 357. Chen Guang had already turned to ask the manager next to him, "May I ask if you have a second hammer here? The kind that's especially big and heavy, the kind that can smash a car's roof with one hammer." The manager looked confused. "Yes, sir, what's wrong?" Chen Guang grinned. "Bring me one." "What are you doing?" Zhuo Jingxi turned his face around. Chen Guang chuckled. "To make the Guqin player feel despair, to make him not dare to compete with me, I have to use a more interesting method to make him understand that this bit of money is nothing to me. You're right, I want to smash the car." "You're crazy." "Not crazy, very clear-headed. It's just a few 100,000, anyway, in a few days I'll need more." In the end, Chen Guang didn't finish his sentence. Yes, with Liuli's personality, the money in his pocket really wouldn't last long, so he didn't say it out loud to make people worry for no reason. "All right. I want it. I want it, all right?" Zhuo Jingxi was frightened by Chen Guang's calm tone. After swiping the card, paying, signing, and taking the car keys, the 4S store employee went to run the procedure. The E400L sports luxury model, which was worth a total of 700,000, went to Zhuo Jingxi. Up until now, it had only taken a total of 15 minutes. The onlookers had already dispersed. Everyone knew that the man in the suit had lost. In terms of money, he had lost. In terms of status in the girl's heart, he had lost completely. "Guqin player, what do you have to say now? Anyway, there's still an hour before the person handling the paperwork comes back. Why don't I have a good talk with you here? You're not as rich as me, not as handsome, and Xiao Sisi doesn't like you at all. How can you be so thick-skinned? If I were you, I'd find a piece of tofu and kill myself right now." Chen Guang turned back to look coldly at Zhou Long. Father and Mother Zhuo were already speechless. Today's situation was far beyond their expectations. They were also complaining about Zhuo Jingxi in their hearts. "You should have told us earlier that you already have such a great friend. Why did we have to push you onto Zhou Long? Your boyfriend is really something. He's obviously a millionaire, yet he says he's a web novelist. He must have been planning to show off his wealth to make Zhou Long despair, right?" Zhou Long looked up at Zhuo Jingxi, who was still hugging Chen Guang. His heart was filled with despair and coldness. His neatly combed hair was now a mess. Every word that Chen Guang said was trampling on his dignity, just like how he had used his identity countless times in the past to flaunt and pressure Zhuo Jingxi's parents. I can play the piano better than you." He didn't know why he said that, but it was the only thing he could think of that he was better than Chen Guang. Chen Guang's face stiffened. Did he really get it right? What's the use of playing the piano? I'm better at writing novels than you. Chen Guang rolled his eyes. He pulled Zhuo Jingxi to sit on the sofa and said a lot. "Drink some water first." "Humph. You salespeople didn't even give me water just now. You didn't even care about me. I won't drink it even if you give it to me now. I'll bring it myself." He opened his bag, took out a cup, and drank some water. BAU, he had entered the cup world. Just like that. Without any warning. By the time Chen Guang came back to his senses, he was already standing in front of a computer. Liuli was sitting on an esports chair in a cloud bikini, typing away at the keyboard. Her eyes were glued to the screen. As if she had already sensed his arrival, she didn't even look up. She pouted and said, "You're here. Take a seat. You'll be entering in a moment." Chen Guang was dumbfounded. This receptionist's attitude was worse than a salesperson at a 4S store. Why the hell was she so focused on typing away at the computer? He had never seen her so serious. He finally saw it today, but why did it feel so scary? A sense of impending disaster descended from the sky. Chen Guang felt like dark clouds were covering his head. "Hey! What's this? What's going on? Why don't you explain to me what the hell is today's world in a cup?" Chen Guang sat down beside her and protested decisively. Liuli was still typing away. Her typing speed was already at the level of a veteran netizen. No time. Busy. Go figure it out yourself. No one will die anyway. Forget it. I'll tell you a piece of good news. Because of Otto's statue, divine power has been quite abundant recently. There's enough energy in the heavenly Holy Grail. This time, I'll give you a better cup world. Is that so? No one will die. It's better. I feel at ease when I hear these two words. Thanks. Chen Guang chuckled. The cup world is this emperor's duty. You don't have to thank me. If you want to thank someone, thank me for this. What? Are you blind? Don't you know how to read it yourself? Chen Guang grumbled in his heart. If you don't agree to let me read it, won't I be beaten half to death like last time? What is this thing? She seems to be very pleased with herself. Does it have something to do with that financial management thing? Could it be that she has really become a legendary financial management expert after pondering for so many days? He stared at it. Analysis of the classic business TV drama plot, The Storm of Zhongguancun. Oh my god, can someone stop her? After all this time, she still had the same train of thought. She learned business from TV dramas. Now, she's actually manually arranging the TV drama's plot. Is that what she's writing about? Crazy. Chen Guang was just about to jump up and smash her computer. His head twitched and he was sucked in again. Give me a little time. 5 seconds is fine. When he came back to his senses, he suddenly discovered that he was sitting on a chair. Looking around, he discovered that there were many people staring at him from all directions. White, black, male, female, old, young. There's someone here. This time, there's someone in the cup world. Oh my god. I've finally seen a living person. It's really a great cup world. Tears streamed down his face. How long has it been since the last time he saw a living person in the cup world? Well, in fact, it's only been 1 or 2 months in the outside world. But in the heavenly Holy Grail, it's already a long time ago. Happy. Then what is the test of the cup world this time? Chen Guang got up, planning to greet the people around him and ask for information. According to the style of online games, he should be in the novice village right now, right? Unexpectedly, as soon as he got up, he saw the people who were looking at him calmly suddenly become extremely angry. They roared wildly, throwing the wine glasses, bread, steaks, plates, and forks in their hands at him like a swarm of bees. For a moment, Chen Guang was caught off guard. What the hell? Can we communicate properly? Accompanied by the angry roars of the crowd, the sound of things hitting the ground or something else came one after another. The overwhelming amount of things became more and more violent, and Chen Guang was unknowingly pushed back onto the chair. Just as his butt was pushed back, the angry crowd suddenly returned to their previous state. They were still looking at him with expectant eyes. The countless things that were flying in the air just now disappeared into thin air, as if nothing had happened. Chen Guang's face darkened. After all this time, these people were not living people, but NPCs in games that only knew one trick. What the hell is this cup world? Then he carefully looked around, the familiar dim yellow light, the towering wooden pillars everywhere, the people sitting together, the strange looks in their eyes, and the familiar patterns on the lobby floor. Finally, his vision returned to the piano in front of him. This scene, this crowd, this style, and that black man who was surrounded by people. Finally, Chen Guang recalled a movie that he had watched in the past, Ocean Pianist. Am I 1900 sitting in front of the piano? Chapter 358. I got it. Before I came in, I was ridiculing Zhou Long for being able to play the piano, but I ended up entering the world of cups. Seriously, how could I accept this? If you want to kill me, just give me your green dragon crescent blade. However, there was something that Chen Guang couldn't figure out. Although he said that playing the piano was worthless, he knew that it wasn't as simple as it seemed. It wasn't as simple as moving your fingers and randomly pressing on the piano. Even if you could play the piano, you were still miles away from it. Other than that, there were millions of people who could play the piano. To people who didn't understand music, it was the same thing. But why were some people called pianists, while others could only squat in middle school to teach students? The most important difference was in one word: musical literacy. When one's musical literacy reached a certain level, playing the same score would sound like it was on a completely different level to people who understood music. Other than that, being able to play someone else's score to compose one's own was another level of difference. So in history, there were Beethoven, Mozart, and Tchaikovsky who were engraved on monuments. Even after hundreds of years, they were still looked up to by countless people. Music that could truly be remembered in history was able to strike the deepest parts of one's heart. It was the sound that came from the depths of a pianist's soul. To produce this kind of sound, it required incomparable spirituality, extraordinary talent, unparalleled understanding and talent of music, and enough perseverance. Only then could one become a true master. At least in Chen Guang's understanding, although the world of cups at the spirit sky level was powerful, his previous training was mostly focused on improving his body's instinctive reactions. English was thrown into the environment of the Sea of Moments, forcing him to live with pirates who spoke with a medieval accent. He had to learn it. To play Dota, he had to train his body and brain to form an intuition-like instinct for the game through days and days of boring training. Perhaps the changes in the game version would cause his level to fluctuate, but as long as he got used to the version, he would be able to make the right decision at the right time and react the fastest without thinking. There was no need to talk about the racing god training ground, pencil sharpening, and Qilin arms. But if he was good at playing the piano, he would be a musician, a master. The difficulty level should be the same as that of a businessman. There was no reason for him to appear now. Chen Guang pondered while looking at the music scores on the piano stand in front of him. His heart was at a loss. At least 10 minutes had passed, but the people around him did not move at all. They were still looking at him expectantly and whispering to each other from time to time. The blonde waitress, who was dressed in revealing clothes and had a white patch on her chest, was carrying a tray and walking through the crowd. From time to time, she would pat people's buttocks and tease them for a while. Then, she would put the wine glasses on the tray on the guests' table and bend down to let people stuff the coins into her breasts. After a brief moment, Chen Guang noticed that the waitress had returned. Her steps were the same as before, and there wasn't any difference in her expression. It was so much so that there wasn't any change in her dress when she was patted. As expected, it was still a shoddy production. Even though it looked so real, it was a completely different concept from Captain Annie and Old Jack on the N Royal. This was basically a holographic projection that was being played on repeat. But it really hurt when the things that these bastards threw at him hit his head. Without Liuli's guidance or the electronic voice of the heavenly Holy Grail, Chen Guang knew that Liuli's attitude earlier was not fake. She really planned to let him go. Fine, let's just do it. Anyway, the piano was here, and so was the music score. After thinking about it, he just had to play according to the music score. After squinting at the music score in front of him for half an hour, Chen Guang could not even move his fingers. He could not understand it at all. Ever since he was young, he had never even looked at the music score of a nursery rhyme, let alone the piano. What the hell was there to learn? At least give him some instructions. Even a beginner's textbook would be good. With an incomparable pain in the ass, he pressed both his hands hard on the piano. The sound of 10 fingers hitting the keys at the same time suddenly broke the silence under the hustle and bustle of the Virginian. The next moment, the crowd was furious again. One after another, inexplicable things flew into the sky and landed on Chen Guang's face, body, and head. After a long time, they finally stopped. Pulling off half a piece of buttered bread and butter from his face, Chen Guang's face was filled with vicissitudes of life. He understood now. These animals who were watching for fun were equivalent to sound test machines. If he left the bench or played the wrong thing, they would go crazy. After calming down a little, Chen Guang extended his left index finger and casually pressed a key. Ding! Then, he was greeted by another storm. People said that a true gentleman should not speak when watching a chess game. These onlookers on the Virginian were definitely the audience who were the furthest away from a true gentleman in this world. There was no audience master worse than them. After trying 66 of the 88 keys, Chen Guang was finally happy to find that these people did not go crazy at the first moment. Well, it was undeniable that they were the most accurate instruments and would not miss a single wrong sound. But if he hesitated a little, he would end up with chicken soup all over his head. Because he had not pressed the second key for a long time. Chen Guang stared at the score and understood. This note referred to this key. He firmly memorized it and memorized it without explanation. It was not important whether he understood it or not. It was fine as long as he could draw the same sound. Just like that, Chen Guang did not know how many things were thrown on him. Finally, he stumbled through the entire song. Thanks to the cleaning and restoration function of the world in the cup, he felt that he would be buried in steak, bread, cups, and plates. By the way, the cleaning function of the world in the cup did not let go of his body. It was absolutely instantaneous and clean, leaving no residue and no stains. But he thought that he was free, and then he immediately realized that he was wrong. The crowd still went crazy again. Being slapped in the face by a large piece of medium-rare steak, and feeling the taste of blood and gravy, Chen Guangming instantly understood. The sound of the flick was so unpleasant that he couldn't bear it either. The anger of these NPCs was only natural. He did not know how much time had passed, and he did not know how many times he had released the last key. Then he waited for the storm to come again, but after a long time, there was no movement. He looked around and suddenly felt tears streaming down his face. The people around him were finally no longer angry. Instead, they looked at him with surprise and disbelief. In these people's eyes, there was worship and hatred. The eyes of the black jazz master were filled with unwillingness and contempt. It was done. Chen Guang let out a long sigh of relief. Damn, he finally got through this song by rote. If he remembered correctly, when 1900 in the movie Pianist on the Sea played the first song in front of everyone, the ordinary people showed this expression. As his memory flowed, he compared the scene in front of him with the scene in the movie. This person and the picture actually overlapped. That's right, the song I just played is also at the level of the performance of 1900 in the movie. It was not easy. A person who did not understand music and had never played any musical instrument before could actually do this. Not to mention other things, at least this song had become as good as 1900. He did not need any musical talent. He only needed to memorize the corresponding keys of each note, and then let his hands grasp each subtle rhythm with the same mechanical precision. Completely copied. 1900 possessed. Chapter 359. Just as Chen Guang was showing off, the jazz master finally came up. Chen Guang knew that according to the movie's plot, it was time for him to play a song. He got up and gave way. Too lazy to listen to what this guy was playing, Chen Guang rushed out of the bar and ran to the deck of the Virginian. Long time no see. You're all water. Sure enough, you can't count on too much. After leaving the bar, everything became mosaic. The mosaic deck, the mosaic chimney of the cruise ship, the mosaic sea, and the mosaic of himself. The square sun in the distant sky that was about to set the sea level filled Chen Guang's heart with a touch of sadness. I thought you would give me a sea of moments, but it turned out to be a mosaic. I didn't know how to cherish it until I lost it. How I missed the little things in the sea of moments. Just as he was letting his imagination run wild, a large group of people rushed out of the bar. Chen Guang watched as these vivid people rushed out of the bar and turned into mosaic people. Their hands reached out first, and then their hands turned into mosaic. When their heads popped out, their faces turned into mosaic first, but the back of their heads was still a real person. With the door as the boundary, it was like there was an invisible barrier. When people passed through this barrier, their body parts turned into mosaic as if they were scanned. Watching people turn into mosaic, Chen Guang's hair stood on end, but the people who rushed out didn't feel it at all. Then, before he came back to his senses, he was restrained by 7 or 8 mosaic people. He wanted to resist, but as soon as he was touched by these people, he felt powerless. He knew that this might be some kind of unexplained rule of the world in a cup, but he didn't care. He was carried into the bar by these people. This time, he deliberately felt it, and he clearly felt the changes when he changed from a mosaic to a real person. It was really strange. Starting from his feet, a kind of numb feeling swept through his body like an electric shock. Although he didn't want to admit it, this ticklish feeling was really refreshing. The great Negro jazz musician had long since finished his performance and was looking at him with a contemptuous expression that seemed to say, "Well, you've lived your whole life on a ship and never seen the world." Chen Guang sat on the stool and rolled up his sleeves. He didn't even want to talk to him. "I'm the main character today, 1900. You're just a looping NPC, and you're destined to be trampled under my feet." The score in front of him had changed, but with the foundation laid by the previous score, this time he finally recognized every symbol from the beginning, and he could generally feel the rhythm of the song. With this brother's ability, this second piece will definitely be written like a god, and my hands will be like Beethoven's. But when he actually played it, it was completely different. When he had just pressed the second key, Chen Guang's head was full of bumps. "Okay, I admit it, I really don't have any talent for music." The first piece was forcefully exchanged for tens of thousands of bumps. In fact, he wasn't even sure if it was tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of bumps, because these irritable audience members were too easy to deal with. Time flew, and the square sun outside the bar rose and set. These tireless and irritable audience members accompanied Chen Guang for countless days and nights on the Virginian. They didn't sleep, didn't rest, and threw things that needed to be thrown. The amount of banknotes in the bra of the blonde, blue-eyed, big-breasted waitress could probably be piled up from the earth to the moon. Finally, when the last note was played, Chen Guang let out a long sigh. "Brother, I survived again." Chen Guang thought that he could be like 1900 in the movie. After playing a few songs, that jazz musician would be finished. But later, he found out that he was wrong, ridiculously wrong. When the second piece finished, he didn't run out. Instead, he listened to the so-called master play a song. In the end, the guy played the song that he had just played. "Hey, you obviously can't play as well as I can, so why are you still looking at me with such arrogant and disdainful eyes? What a drug dealer. That's right, I shouldn't have competed with a looping NPC like you." Then, he fell into a terrible nightmare loop. After he finished playing a song, the Black Master would play a song. What was even more shameful was that the guy was obviously not as accurate as him, but he still acted arrogantly at him with a poor and smug look. Chen Guang endured and endured. After playing about 100 songs, he finally couldn't hold it in anymore. With the intention of testing the waters, after he passed the test, he kicked the black man who was playing like he was intoxicated. "Hey, this is going to be fun." The strong black man was kicked to the ground, but he actually stood up on his own without a sound, picked up the stool, sat in front of the piano, and played from the beginning. Chen Guang's curiosity was piqued, so he kicked him again. The black man returned to his original expressionless face. He wouldn't get angry no matter how much he was kicked, and he wouldn't get hurt no matter how much he was beaten. He was simply the best sandbag. However, it wasn't good to kick him too many times. It was purely a waste of his time. Chen Guang didn't dawdle with him anymore. Instead, he turned his attention to the other people in the large hall. "I'll let this poor black man finish playing." There were at least 400 to 500 people in the cruise ship bar. These people wouldn't resist no matter what. No matter how much they tossed and turned, they would return to their original state after losing Chen Guang's external interference. They had no senses, no emotions, and would only play in a looping pattern. But it just so happened that they felt like real flesh and bones. There was an old white-haired scholar, a tall and strong Caucasian boxer, a noble young woman in luxurious clothes, a mysterious Asian woman in a sorcerer's robe, a lively and cute simple girl, a tall Chinese man in a cheongsam, and so on. Why were the ones that Chen Guang noticed later on all girls? There was a lot of knowledge in this. As the Buddha said, it couldn't be said. But in the end, he didn't do the most ruthless thing. After all, he was a man with a lot of experience. It would be too unambitious to ruin his golden body on these unconscious NPCs. Of course, it was also fortunate that he didn't really have that idea. Although Azure let him go, she had long been secretly guarding against him doing such a stupid thing. If he really dared to do it, the friendship of the Virginians would collapse. In short, thanks to these hard-working NPCs who didn't fight back or scold him, they became the only bright color in Chen Guang's boring piano journey. Today's World in the Cup still carried out the essence of force-feeding, using the loyal audience's incessant spur to make him grit his teeth and play one song after another. He couldn't remember how many songs he played in total. Perhaps it included all the music scores that had ever been recorded in the history of mankind. But in the end, he still couldn't become a real pianist. Even if he had perfect mastery of every song and every key, he still wasn't a pianist. Just as he had speculated at the beginning, playing music required spirituality. This was an innate talent. He didn't have a single bit of that, but the precision and subtle rhythm of playing the piano could be obtained through cruel training. His technique was impeccable, like the most sophisticated instrument, but it had no spirituality. He was the most powerful pianist in history. He could play the most perfect tune according to the music score, but he couldn't write even the slightest pleasant tune himself. Master Light became the most powerful piano player in history. That was all, it was impeccable. Light flashed, and he returned to the sea of clouds, his hands still trembling like they were convulsing. Chapter 360. Actually, he had to thank the Qilin Arm realm, which allowed him to master the terrifying overclocked Qilin Arm in advance. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to accomplish such a feat so easily. To become a top-notch pianist, apart from being able to play music, the most important thing was to have a pair of hands suitable for playing the piano. Without years of hard work and muscle memory, it was impossible to become a top-notch pianist. And before Chen Guang entered the world of pianists, he already had the unexplainable Qilin Arm realm. Lioli was still typing away at the computer. She snorted through her nose. It feels good, doesn't it? It's all right, that girl in the black robe is really, get lost. With a kick, Master Guang returned to the modern world. He looked up and saw Zhou Long glaring at him with a face full of hatred. He turned his head and saw a white piano in the corner of the Mercedes-Benz 4S shop. As expected of a Mercedes-Benz, even the 4S shop was so fancy. Then, I'll let you down. If the heavens want you dead, you have no choice but to die. I'll give you Liszt's Recollections of Don Juan. I hope you like it. Since he had already caused such a ruckus with Zhou Long and Zhuo Jingxi's parents, he had to go through with it. He couldn't give this guy any more guts. He had to step on him. At the same time, he had to make father and mother Zhuo completely give up on this lousy pianist. So, Chen Guang chose the Recollections of Don Juan, that Zhou Long would definitely know was amazing. Liszt's Recollections of Don Juan, adapted from Mozart's opera, Recollections of Don Juan, had always been known as the most difficult piano piece to play. Saying it was the most difficult might be debatable, but there was no doubt that it was one of the top 10 most difficult pieces in the world. Everyone who dared to perform this piece in public in a concert hall was a famous pianist who had gone through thousands of trials and tribulations and meticulously prepared for it. If one could perform this extremely difficult piece perfectly in public, they would have the chance to be recognized by the world and join the ranks of famous pianists in the country and even the world. With Zhou Long's current level, he could try it a few times in private, but it was impossible for him to perform it in public. Of course, it would be great if he succeeded in challenging a difficult piece, as it would increase his fame. But if he failed, he would lose a lot of face. Of course, different pianists might have different interpretations. Real musicians all had their own personal styles. Music wasn't a mathematical formula. You couldn't say that just because he was faster than the previous performer by 0.1 milliseconds, it would be worse than the original. Perhaps the earliest composer had the same rhythm in this section. Liszt had been dead for a long time, and even if he were to come back to life, he might not dare to say that his version was the most beautiful in history. Music was more perceptual than rational. In the process of playing the piano, there were countless coincidences. When these coincidences were linked together, they formed the pianist's personal style. Some people felt that Horowitz's version was the most beautiful, while others felt that Li Yundi's version was better. Although the two of them didn't seem to be on the same level, everyone who listened to the music could make their own subjective judgment. That's how I feel. There's nothing you can do about it. Music could be objective, but the judgment depended more on the listener's subjective feelings. Everyone had the freedom to choose who they liked more. Even if the same person performed the same piece in different places, with precise instruments, countless variations could be found. No one could tell which was better or worse. There was no first place in literature, and there was no second place in martial arts. It was the same in music. But Qin Guang wasn't like that. He was different from all the pianists in history. He was the most perfect craftsman. The way the music was, the way he played it would be the same. Today, I played the same way. In another place, at another time, I played the same way. Even if you used the most precise instrument, you wouldn't be able to find the difference, because I was as precise as you. He had no style. That was his only style. After Qin Guang made his decision, he stood up and looked straight at Zhou Long. Zhou Long, you said that you can play the piano better than me? Zhou Long's heart, which was about to be completely shattered, recovered a little. He said firmly, of course. There's a piano over there. I'll give you one last lesson. As Qin Guang spoke, he ignored everyone's astonished gazes and strode towards the white piano. When he was about to reach the piano, he suddenly remembered something and turned around to ask the manager, "Can I use this piano?" The manager was a little hesitant, but finally nodded. Then, Qin Guang sat down and turned his head to Zhuo Jingxi, Zhou Long, and the others who were staring at him in shock. He grinned and said, "Let me give you a Don Juan." As soon as he finished speaking, he began to play. Zhou Long was shocked. He really didn't understand why this kid would challenge him in his own field of expertise. Of course, he knew this was one of the top 10 most difficult songs in the world. Even a professional pianist could easily humiliate himself by challenging this song without preparation, let alone a young man who didn't look like a pianist. Zhuo Jingxi was even more confused than Zhou Long. Although she had only been Qin Guang's tutor for half a semester, she had asked a lot about him in class, but she had never heard that he could play the piano. He knew that Zhou Long was a new master pianist in the country, so why would he want to compete with Zhou Long on this matter for no reason? Could it be that this kid had been hiding his skills all this time? But that didn't make sense. You've really hidden yourself too deeply. Based on Zhuo Jingxi's understanding of Qin Guang, this guy was the kind of person who wanted the whole world to know about his skills. Just like his English and his driving skills. According to Lin Jingwei, he was almost invincible in games. But after 30 seconds, Zhuo Jingxi no longer had any doubts about Qin Guang. His hands were like smooth water, and like butterflies flying up and down, cheering and jumping on the piano keys. Beautiful notes burst out from under his fingers at an extremely fast speed, knocking on Zhuo Jingxi's heart. Zhou Long's face became paler and paler. He had recently practiced this song, so of course he knew how difficult it was. Qin Guang's performance was so precise that even with his professional ears, he couldn't pick out any flaws. But this wasn't what scared Zhou Long the most. 5 minutes later, Zhou Long finally realized the horror of Chen Guang's piano skills. Of course, there were people who had performed Don Juan reminiscences in public, but even the world-famous masters would often be accompanied by extremely intense body language when performing this song. The expression on their faces would be uncontrollable because they were completely immersed in it, sometimes ferocious, sometimes even more ferocious. But Chen Guang wasn't like this. He was smiling from beginning to end, and even turned his head to look around from time to time. But the movements of his hands never slowed down or became chaotic. Casual precision. This was the most suitable word that Zhou Long could think of to describe Chen Guang's current state. It was too scary. How good was this person to be able to play Don Juan reminiscences like he was taking a stroll in the park? Zhou Long didn't know that Chen Guang wasn't pretending to look around. He was really worried that someone would take a photo of him. He had posted on Weibo as an almighty Superman, and now he wasn't wearing a mask. If someone took a video and posted it online, it was inevitable that they would associate it with the almighty Superman. Fortunately, no one took a photo of him for the time being. Zhou Long's mind was in a state of confusion. Impossible, absolutely impossible. This isn't something a human can do. I don't believe he can still do this after 10 minutes. I don't believe it. Chapter 361. 10 minutes later, Chen Guang was still as calm as ever. He even turned his head to speak again, his hands still moving. Brother, who's about to take out his phone, can you please not take pictures of me? I'm a businessman, I don't want to be famous, thank you. The man put away his phone, feeling wronged. Zhuo Jingxi even went up to watch him delete the video he had taken. Zhou Long, who was beside her, broke down. This was unreasonable. He could play Don Juan and chat with people at the same time? Chen Guang spoke again, his face still carrying that indifferent smile. He turned his head to the side and grinned. See, there's nothing great about playing the piano, it's just that I'm not interested in it. It's getting a bit boring. Xiao Cixi, take out your phone, I want to read the second season of Report Boss. When Zhuo Jingxi placed her phone on the piano and Chen Guang laughed while playing the piano and watching Report Boss, Zhou Long completely broke down. From beginning to end, he played casually, but the tune he played was as steady as a CD player. I'll tolerate this. But you're playing while watching a funny web drama, you're insulting art. You're insulting my character. I can't tolerate this. But Zhou Long knew that he couldn't do what Chen Guang did. Even when Chen Guang finally pressed the last note and got up to hug Zhuo Jingxi again, he still hadn't regained his composure. Although father and mother Zhuo didn't know much about music, just by looking at Zhou Long's shocked expression, they knew who was better and who was worse. Although they didn't know why, this Chen Guang seemed to be much better at playing the piano than Zhou Long. Looking at Zhuo Jingxi's timid and helpless appearance from beginning to end, the two elders found a reason to overcome this hurdle in their hearts. Young people's futures should be decided by young people themselves. Perhaps this was ironic and ridiculous, but if father and mother Zhuo didn't think this way, they couldn't explain the sudden change in their attitudes towards Chen Guang. This was an ugly way of thinking, but it was more practical. Zhou Long turned around in a daze and looked at the two elders with pleading eyes. The two elders awkwardly turned their faces to the side. They really did not want to face Zhou Long's plea. Uncle, auntie, are you guys just going to watch as that brat, Chen Guang, and Jing Si are hugging each other? Zhou Long questioned. Father Zhuo and mother Zhuo didn't answer him, but some of the people who had been watching the show couldn't help but burst out laughing. This chuckle was long and meaningful. Papa Zhuo was so embarrassed that his face was as red as blood. Mama Zhuo, after all, was someone who had seen the world. Little Zhou, there's nothing we can do, right? As you can see, Jing Si really likes Chen Guang. As elders, we have to respect the young people's own ideas. Auntie. You. Mother Zhuo's skills were still profound. Although it was difficult to deal with Qin Guang against Zhuolong, this sentence was enough to make him despair. The same plot, different reasons, but Mother Zhua had a similar goal. The only difference was that Mother Zhua had always been on his side, but now she was supporting Qin Guang. Zhuolong finally understood Zhuo Jingxi's helplessness. It was undeniable that he might really like Zhuo Jingxi. Now that he was successful in his own field, he was still determined to come back and marry Zhuo Jingxi. Using Father Zhua and Mother Zhua's coercion to force Zhuo Jingxi to submit wasn't a very honorable method. Wanting to treat her as a canary wasn't a good starting point. His moral integrity of going out to buy a car and quickly hooking up with a female salesperson was shattered to the ground. Normally, he did use his fame and power to sleep with some female students or new artists who were eager to advance. But in the end, he really wanted to marry Zhuo Jingxi. If it wasn't for Qin Guang, he might have succeeded today. But now, he had become a pitiful stray dog. In front of him was a chance to make a comeback. That was to sit on the piano and play a section of Recollections of Don Juan, in his best condition to prove that he was a professional pianist. But he didn't dare. Little Zhou, forget it. You can't force it. Papa Zhuo walked up to him. Zhuolong couldn't remember how many times he had heard this sentence today, but it was the first time Papa Zhuo said it. It had a deeper meaning. You'll regret it. He finally broke down and pointed at Qin Guang. This brat is definitely not the best man for Jingxi. You'll regret it. Are you threatening me? Qin Guang's face darkened. Zhuolong took 2 steps back, his heart trembling. I'm not threatening you. But you're worse than me. No matter how bad I am, I still love Jingxi with all my heart. You're just playing with her. I can't feel any feelings from the way you look at her. Zhuolong was right. Qin Guang just happened to be at the right time today. From the beginning, he had only planned to help Zhuo Jingxi put on this show. Unfortunately, his acting was a little disappointing to the audience. So what? You can't have a double standard. In your world, money is enough. In my world, it should be the same, right? Qin Guang shrugged. In terms of money, you lost. In terms of playing the piano, you also lost. In terms of position in Zhuo Jingxi's heart, you lost completely. Now, in terms of importance to the 2 elders, you lost completely. That's right, I want to trample on you from every angle. His words sounded a little shameless, but Papa Zhuo and Papa Zhuo didn't refute him. Zhuo Jingxi felt a little sad, but also relieved. After Qin Guang's mess, she was indeed free from now on. Unless, Qin Guang really wanted her? With that thought, she turned her head to look at Qin Guang in fright, only to find him winking mischievously at her. Zhuo Jingxi laughed inwardly. This guy. Forget it. I don't care about him. I'm just overthinking things. The human heart was really complicated. She felt a little disappointed. In the end, Zhuolong didn't say anything more. He turned around and left. At that moment, it was useless for him to say anything. Seeing Zhuolong leave with his tail between his legs, the show came to an end. The few people who were still watching the show went back to their own business. The family of 4 sat in the VIP resting area of the 4S store and waited for a while. There was still some time before the staff went to the vehicle management office to prepare the household registration. Mama Zhua had a fake warm smile on her face. She leaned over and said, "Little Chen, when do you plan to settle your marriage with Xiaoxi?" Qin Guang waved his hand. "Auntie, don't say that. It's not set in stone yet." "What? What do you mean?" Mama Zhuo looked confused. Qin Guang chuckled. He planned to hit them in the head. It didn't matter if his acting was bad, as long as the lines were good. Anyway, he had already acted like a nouveau riche. He might as well pour cold water on the 2 of them, lest they went back to pressuring Zhuo Jingxi because of him. Chapter 362. Just as you told me before, Auntie, as long as a man is doing it for his career, you don't mind even if he's fooling around outside. I'll just say it out loud. Right now, my net worth is in the hundreds of millions. He swallowed his saliva and laughed inwardly. 100 million was still 100 million. So, my career is indeed very successful, right? For the sake of my career, sometimes there are many things that are beyond my control. To put it simply, if I want to marry and have children, I have to be of equal status. You understand. Also, my appetite is very big. If she alone can't satisfy me, then I'll be unhappy. If I'm in a bad mood, my business decisions will go wrong and my career will be affected. So, to make me happy, Uncle and Auntie, you won't object to me finding a woman outside, right? They didn't expect Chen Guang's words to be so straightforward. Father and Mother Zhuo's faces turned green. Even though Zhuo Long had such plans, he didn't say it out loud. But this Chen brat's straightforwardness caught the two elders completely off guard. Zhuo Jingxi was almost pinching the flesh on Chen Guang's waist to mush, but Chen Guang's expression didn't change and his heart didn't beat a beat. Mother Zhuo's face turned green and white. She didn't expect him to be so shameless. Uncle and Auntie, don't look at me like that. I'm just like that. I speak frankly and say whatever I want to say. As a businessman, I'm under a lot of pressure. Of course, my sincerity towards Xiao Sisi can't be faked. Even if I can't marry her in the future because of various reasons, I can guarantee that she won't be poor for the rest of her life. Other than a marriage certificate, she'll have everything she needs. Of course, I'm a selfish person. Once she's with me, she'll always belong to me. I don't want to waste my time arguing with a small character like Zhuo Long in the future. I hope you too can understand, and you must understand. After saying this, he didn't say anything else. Instead, he pretended to be unfathomable and remained silent. Zhuo Jingxi was helpless and had a headache. She felt that asking him to chase Zhuo Long away was inviting trouble for herself. But now that things had come to this, she couldn't explain anything. Father Zhuo and Mother Zhuo looked at each other in dismay. They were a little angry, but they didn't know what to say. They really couldn't summon up the courage to be cold. They were the ones who went back on their words. Now that the little sapling, Zhou Long, had been chased away, they really didn't want to chase away the towering tree, Chen Guang. From a personality point of view, this young man named Chen Guang was definitely not a good match. Who would talk to his parents-in-law like this? But he was really rich. They didn't sit for long before Chen Guang remembered the real purpose of this trip. While there was still some time, he hurriedly dragged them to the Volkswagen 4S shop next door. After entering the shop, he stared at the phaeton without saying a word. It was the only phaeton left in the shop. It was already out of print, and there was only one phaeton left in the shop. It took 30 seconds to negotiate, 5 minutes to sign the contract, and 10 minutes to swipe the card. That wasn't all. The 1.7 million phaeton was not a top-tier luxury car. The real top-tier thing was what Chen Guang said when he returned to the Mercedes-Benz shop after signing the contract. Remove the logo at the back of the car and replace it with a Passat's logo. I want it to look exactly like a real Passat. Although the phaeton looked like a Passat but was a luxury car worth millions, people often complained that people who bought a phaeton were low-key, luxurious, and sophisticated. So far, Chen Guang was the only one who was so bold that he wanted to replace the logo with a Passat's logo. The salesperson in the Volkswagen 4S shop was stunned. Sir, you're not joking? Chen Guang's face darkened. Look at my sincere eyes. Do I look like I'm joking? The poor salesperson, who had been traumatized, shook his head blankly. No. That's it then. That's it. Actually, I'm not buying a phaeton, but a longer and wider Passat. You know what I mean. Until Chen Guang and the others left the Volkswagen 4S shop, the salesperson was still in a state of complete confusion. The manager stood beside him and said softly, rich and willful. The salesperson nodded vigorously. Quite willful. The manager nodded. I feel sorry for our out-of-print phaeton. Zhuo Jingxi pulled Chen Guang and walked quickly in front, deliberately distancing herself from the two elders who were completely confused. You. Why are you doing this? Zhuo Jingxi looked at him in distress. She only felt that she loved and hated this guy at the same time. He was really trying his best to help her, but his methods were too harsh. Chen Guang made a pained expression. Teacher Zhuo, I didn't want to do this. But if you look at it this way, I'm saying all this for you. In the future, although uncle and auntie will definitely hate me, you won't have to worry about them forcing you to do anything. Other than that, they definitely won't want us to look for them all the time. Out of sight, out of mind. Think about it, we're both pretending. The more we meet, the more your mother is, the more she'll find out sooner or later. I'm completely sacrificing my image to help you. Zhuo Jingxi looked at him blankly. That was true. Chen Guang was very popular in class. With his personality, how could he be like this today? Sigh, thank you. Zhuo Jingxi couldn't help but feel touched. He had indeed sacrificed a lot. Chen Guang grunted. You're welcome. It's what I should do. Please call me Lei Hong. Comrade Lei Hong, can you stop putting your hand on my butt? It's so embarrassing. Zhuo Jingxi's face was red. Chen Guang was unmoved. When you're acting, you have to go all the way. You have to destroy your image completely. Arrogant, overbearing, black-bellied, lecherous, uncultured, homebody, tycoon. These are all synonyms for me in your parents' hearts. For example, what I'm doing now is also very meaningful. But you've been touching it for a long time. Maybe it got stuck with superglue and can't be pulled off. Zhuo Jingxi sighed and looked up at the distant sky. She felt that she had done something stupid today. After sending Zhou Long away, she welcomed Chen Guang. She had invited a wolf into her house. His skin was as thick as a city wall. Why didn't I realize you had this potential before? If I had known, I would have stayed away from you. Hee, I'm sorry. Now that the 700,000 yuan car is under your name, you can't get off my boat. I forgot to tell you that we're not related at all. You'll have to pay taxes for the car transfer. It'll be at least a few tens of thousands. Huh? Zhuo Jingxi felt even more hopeless. In the end, Zhuo Jingxi's parents did not make it until Zhuo Jingxi went to the vehicle management office. They barely managed to hold on for another half an hour before leaving with their noses pinched. Before they left, they really regretted one thing. Was it right or wrong of them to sell their daughter in the past? When he sold her to Zhou Long, he was hypocritical enough and was willing to cover it up in front of his parents. His parents thought it was okay, but out of sight, out of mind. Now that they had sold her for a better price, they could not bring themselves to be happy. They really could not stand Chen Guang's undisguised frivolity and insolence. He wantonly played with Zhuo Jingxi's buttocks in front of them. Staying with a man like this for the rest of her life, no matter how much money she had, would she be happy? Chen Guang watched his parents walk away with a heavy heart. Without waiting for Zhuo Jingxi to say anything, he took his hand back and turned to look at Zhuo Jingxi with a serious expression. Teacher Zhuo, trust me. Your parents will reflect on their actions when they go home. Zhuo Jingxi looked at his incomparably clear eyes without a trace of distracting thoughts. She originally wanted to scold him, but she couldn't say a single word. After a while, she only sighed and said heavily once again, "Thank you." Chapter 363. Following that, Chen Guang accompanied her to pick up the car and drove behind her. He accompanied her, a novice, all the way back to the neighborhood outside Gokyo University where she rented. From beginning to end, he did not make any excessive moves. Until the two of them parted, Zhuo Jingxi was still pondering over his changes. After her parents left, he returned to his original self. He was a little uncomfortable, but there was no more pressure in his heart. Teacher Joie, then I'm leaving. Call me when you're ready to do an experiment in a few days. If there's nothing else, I'll come and disturb you. Chen Guang chuckled as he greeted her, revved the accelerator, and drove away in the widened Passat. When there was no one around, he parked the car on the side of the road. His eyes were almost crescent-shaped, and his face was wretched. I'm going to give up on myself. Why am I so talented? I can take advantage of others in such a justified manner. I'm simply a genius. It was a pity that Teacher Joie still couldn't let it go. Fortunately, the old man was quick-witted and immediately restrained himself when he realized that the situation was not good. Sure enough, he was deceived by her. I miss my void refresh double. I don't know when I'll have such an opportunity again. Sigh. Zhuo Jingxi watched Chen Guang leave with a similarly disappointed expression. She then turned her head to look at the Mercedes-Benz E400L parked next to her, and her heart was even more confused. How did I end up with such an amazing student? What should I do in the future? Can I still use the mentality of facing ordinary students to deal with him? No matter what, her right buttocks were still itching, and she could vaguely feel a pair of big hands rubbing it. When she thought of his ambiguous attitude after her parents left, Zhuo Jingxi was slightly relieved, but also felt a faint sense of regret. She didn't want to admit it, but it was the truth. Back in the dormitory, Chen Guang put aside his miscellaneous thoughts, turned on the computer, logged into Dota, and thought about recording a video of himself playing games to post on Weibo. The almighty Superman account had to be operated and kept popular. In a few days, he would look for Lu Fei and see if she had a piano. She could help him record a video of him playing the piano and post it on Weibo, so that those ordinary people could see what a real shadowless hand was. Other than that, it was about time for the Sword Pagoda battle team to start working. Liuli could cheat her father at any time. Who knew when she would wake up one day and be back to the time before liberation? When it came to spending money, she had to race against time to save her family property. Perhaps, after Liuli demonstrated her capability as a God Emperor-level financial butler, he would have to rely on being an internet celebrity to survive. Just thinking about it made him a little sad. Forget it, being an internet celebrity was better than being a little brother on the internet. With the heavenly Holy Grail in his hands, everything went smoothly. Chen Guang couldn't think of what he should pursue at the moment, so he simply stopped thinking about it. It was enough for him to focus on the things that he could do well in front of him. He didn't turn on the recording for the first one, so he was very comfortable with it. Although Carl the Summoner had been weakened recently, he was still able to use it smoothly. In the second round, Carl was snatched by the other side. Chen Guang had decisively chosen a Feng Xing mid-laner, but in the end, a guy who boasted of himself as an expert appeared and snatched Spirit of Ashes from him. After the two of them quarreled for a long time, Chen Guang had no choice but to add this guy as a friend and let him see his recent achievements before he was finally convinced. Without Liuli pretending to be Jiang Luhua, Chen Guang was unstoppable and decisively ended the game with 27 kills and 0 deaths. Unknowingly, after this second round, his celestial ladder points had actually crossed the threshold of 5,000 points. Looking through the battle record, as long as he didn't encounter Jiang Luhua in a solo match, he would win all of them. If he encountered Jiang Luhua, his winning rate would plummet to only 27%. This couldn't help but make him a little discouraged. After thinking about it carefully, he realized that he wasn't the man with the highest level of Sword Pagoda in the world. At this time, Liuli's voice suddenly came from the bottom of his heart. Don't think about this nonsense. Hurry up and think of a way to complete all the previous worlds in cups and build a statue of a god for this lady. It's rare that you're so motivated, so I'll give you the authority to use 10 million yuan. Do as you see fit. I've thrown the money to you, but if you still can't build a statue of a god, I'll let you die a very profound death. F***CK. Don't scare me. Chen Guang was stunned. He had originally planned to do something, but now that she had threatened him like this, he suddenly had to do it. Wait, What the hell do you mean by the authority to use funds? Do you mean you can freeze my account at UBS? I don't believe you. Chen Guang noticed this problem again. Liu chuckled. Of course this empress doesn't need to freeze your bank account. I only need to freeze you. What you said makes sense. I actually have nothing to say. All right, don't dawdle. Hurry up and erect the statue of a god. I have a big plan, and it's still not enough to rely on a statue of Ao Tua. It's very urgent and very critical. Do as you see fit. If you can't build 2 statues of a god within a month, I'll really send you into the cup world while you're squatting to relieve yourself. Liu disappeared after she finished speaking. F***CKU. Aren't I preparing to build a team to get the statue of a god? But the time you gave me is too tight. I can't even make it in time, okay? I protest. The protest was ineffective, and Liu completely stopped moving. Chen Guang silently raised his head. He first thought of a term, king of anal prolapse. Then he thought of another term, you want to die. He then turned his head to look at the computer screen in front of him. He concentrated for a long time. I have a hard life, what should I do? Previously, he wanted to build a team and then participate in the International Invitational Tournament. As long as he could follow this plan step by step, everything would be in the bag. But suddenly, Liu threw out a time limit. Only 1 month. He wasn't a registered player yet, so he didn't have the qualifications to participate in the official tournament. The next heavyweight summer tournament would only start in August. He couldn't make it in time no matter what. God! Save me! What should I do? His mind was a mess. After racking his brains for a long time, Chen Guang uploaded the recorded video. He then wiped his tears. Forget it, he had to get first place in the national server to calm his nerves. In the next few days, other than walking around the city after waking up early in the morning to greet his mother and father, Chen Guang spent most of his time in his dormitory. His original plan to be Lu Fei's mistress was temporarily postponed. It wasn't that he didn't want to go, but he was really afraid of becoming the king of anal prolapse. He was very anxious. But in his current state, he could at most fight 5 matches in a row. If he continued, he would feel dizzy and nauseous. After that, he had to do something else to divert his attention and rest for an hour or so before he could continue fighting. During his fatigue period, he couldn't even read the version update instructions, let alone fight the Dota. Although it was difficult, he still managed to endure it. He used to think that his body was strong and his meals were delicious, but in the end, he underestimated the power of the game. On the 7th day, when he walked into the ward as usual, Chen Guoli was shocked by his 2 huge dark circles and slightly raised cheekbones. It was as if he had seen a ghost. What made Chen Guang's head hurt even more was that Chen Guoli didn't interrogate him about what he had been busy with in the dormitory recently. Instead, he patted his shoulder with tears streaming down his face. Son, it's been hard on you. It seems that the folk remedy I made last time still can't hold on. As Chen Guoli spoke, he took a deep puff of his cigarette and added, it's too scary. Celebrities nowadays are really too scary. Ah. Wait a minute. Dad, what are you thinking about again? His dad's thoughts were too broad, and Chen Guang couldn't take it. Chapter 364. Chen Guang quickly waved his hand. Don't. I'm begging you, don't give me any more of those folk remedies. I can't take any more, or I'll die. But you can't do this. Sooner or later, you'll be squeezed dry, won't you? Chen Guoli was still worried. All right, don't worry about it. Dr. Tang already knows about this. I've already made a deal with her. She'll treat me. Now that things had come to this, Chen Guang had no choice but to use his walk shifting again. Lies were like cancer. Once they were planted, they would continue to spread in the soul. Is that so? In order to prove that he was really willing to accept treatment, Chen Guang had no choice but to find an opportunity to bring Chen Guli to Tang Ying. He desperately winked at her, then said with a sullen face, "Dr. Tang, hurry up and persuade my dad. He's going to give me that expensive tonic soup again. I can't take it anymore." Before Tang Ying could speak, Chen Guli said, "Dr. Tang, I won't hide it from you anymore. Hurry up and save Chen Guang. His kidney deficiency is really getting worse." Tang Ying turned to look at Chen Guang with a blank face. "Those dark circles under your eyes are obviously from staying up all night. It has nothing to do with kidney deficiency." Tang Ying recalled what happened that night. Although she couldn't understand why Chen Guang didn't explain to Chen Guli that he was actually not weak, Tang Ying was almost blinded by this guy's sneaky winks. "Uncle Chen, don't worry. I've been following up on his condition for a few days. Don't worry too much. It's not a big deal." Chen Guli was still uneasy. "Really?" Tang Ying nodded heavily. "Don't worry. Dad, hurry up and leave. Mom is still waiting for you. Anyway, don't give me that folk remedy anymore. I really don't need it." Chen Guang couldn't take it anymore and quickly pushed Chen Guli away. "Aren't you fine? Why didn't you tell your dad?" After Chen Guli walked far away, Tang Ying looked at Chen Guang suspiciously. Did this guy get lucky once and become addicted to that feeling? Sigh, it's a long story, really a long story. If God gives me another chance, I will be an honest man. After saying that, Chen Guang turned around and ran. He couldn't stay here any longer. This guy. Tang Ying stomped her feet. He didn't say anything, but she felt like she was being teased. On the other hand, Chen Guang was thinking that fortunately, his mother would be discharged in 2 days. When they returned to their hometown, he would be free. He actually wanted to go back, but Chen Guli was determined not to let him go back. He only said that he had lost a lot of his studies this year because of his family's matters. He wanted him to make up for it in school and not go back. He had just returned to school and parked his car when he suddenly received a call from Bai Nyangzi. "What's up?" Bai Nyangzi was shocked and shouted, "Brother Guang. You're King God." Chen Guang snorted, "Yeah, see that big hole in the sky? I did it? Spit it out if you have something to say. Say it clearly. You don't know what's going on?" Bai Nyangzi's voice sounded terrified. "If you keep me guessing, you'd better come to school wearing iron underwear when school reopens. Otherwise, I'll make you bleed." Bai Nyangzi was frightened by Chen Guang's threat. Don't. I think you really don't know. Recently, you've been playing on your Dota account, right?" "Yes, why?" Chen Guang was still confused. "You got more than 2,000 points in 6 days. Did you take drugs? Did you take stimulants to get to the celestial ladder?" Bai Nyangzi was almost hysterical as he roared, "Do you know, today I brought a few grandsons from high school to play games? I boasted to them that there was an almighty in our dormitory, but they didn't believe me, which made me so angry. I opened up your record and wanted to watch it. Do you know how I felt at that time?" Then Bai Nyangzi took a deep breath and shouted, "At that time, I felt like I was in heaven. You actually got 7,254 points." Chen Guang pouted. All right, I thought it was something big. That Jiangliua seems to have 8,800 points, right? My 7,000 points is nothing, it's still too early. I've been bored in the dormitory these past few days, so I played a little more. It's normal to get points, what's there to make a fuss about? Hee hee. For a moment, Bai Nyangzi was speechless. Yes. It's normal to get more points, but why don't you King look at your own battle record? I've counted it for you. Up till now, you have 99 consecutive victories. Today, I don't know who also found out about this and posted your battle record on the internet. Tiba and SG have exploded, alright? Huh. 99 consecutive wins? Chen Guang hadn't noticed it himself, but after hearing Bai Nyangzi's words, he suddenly realized that he hadn't lost in a long time. 99 consecutive wins in the celestial ladder, you're really going against the heavens. On the other side, Bai Nyangzi was still shouting in shock. But Chen Guang wasn't in the mood to listen to him anymore. All right, I'll go back to the dormitory to see what's going on. Not long after he hung up, Lin Jingwei called again, and like Bai Nyangzi, he said, I'm going to kneel to you. I don't even want to kneel to you. Chen Guang felt like he couldn't catch his breath from the wind that the two of them brought. Before he entered the dormitory, he decisively hung up on Xiong-er's call. He didn't even want to pick it up. It was nothing more than nonsense like, Almighty, kneel to me, I love you for 10,000 years, teach me when you're free. When he reached the dormitory, he turned on the computer to take a look. Sure enough, the rhythm was flying. In this kind of MOBA esports game, there was often an almost metaphysical 50% win rate law in the matchmaking mode. Anyone who could break the 50% win rate law was an expert who could continuously increase their score. Apart from the equally abnormal Jiang Liuwa, the current strongest player with 8,500 points had a win rate as high as 61%. But Chen Guang hadn't lost a match since last month, which meant that in this month, his win rate was 100%. Dota was a team game, and even the strongest player couldn't beat his deceptive teammates. After a lot of matches, there would always be a lot of bottomless pits of teammates. Many times, when the match was intense, victory or defeat was often decided by a single thought, and there was a lot of chance involved. Even the best player in a fish pond would accidentally step into a pit, and when he pulled himself out, his legs would be full of feces, and he would drown in the fish pond. Of course, according to the historical records, there was indeed a Korean professional player who had a terrifying record of 105 consecutive wins. But the opponent's winning streak was interspersed with a lot of ordinary matches, professional matches where both sides crushed each other's strength, as well as all kinds of group training matches. Moreover, the authenticity of these records was questionable. On the other hand, Chen Guang's 99 consecutive victories were clearly displayed in the records. Everyone could look it up on the website, and they could even watch the recordings of each match. This was really scary. In 6 days, he had gone from 5,000 points to 7,200 points. Withstanding several times when his teammates dropped the game midway, internal conflicts, and when he accidentally filmed himself with a live streamer, the other side peeked at him the whole time, and so on, he had achieved an incredible 99 consecutive wins. Every match was an indisputable victory. Whether it was on Tiaba or the Super Game Forum, it had completely exploded. At first, some people had questioned whether this brother was a super point collector, but when someone unearthed the highlights behind his ID, the direction of public opinion changed, and everyone agreed that he was indeed a hidden expert with an unknown identity. Then, more and more people watched each of his matches, and countless players discovered that this guy was simply a natural source material. Almost every match could be used as a source material. He showed off to the extreme, always showing off the whole audience, and never failing. The public opinion became one-sided, and there was only one word to describe him: animal. An indisputable animal. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.